Hello. Hello, I'm Diane Scott, and I'm a Program and Training Specialist from Workplace Safety North. And we're sponsoring this workshop today. And I'd like to welcome everybody that's both in the room and all people that are online with us today via the webinar. This is a first part that we're doing of a webinar that is both video and audio. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that all the technology is going to keep working. And so what I'd like to do is go through a quick agenda of what we're going to do today and the structure. So what we're going to start out with is with a presentation by Lisa Heffern from the MAESD, which was previously known as the MTCU. So I will sometimes flip on using the new acronym, which is the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development. And what we're going to do is from 8:30 to 10, Lisa will be presenting for part of that, first part of that, and then we'll open it to questions from both in the room and online as well. So once she's finished, we'll be doing that. And because we have a central speaker here as far as technologically, Lisa will probably repeat your question and then answer it after that point. So if you've got any questions on how that might work from out in, you can send the questions in chat on the chat, and then we'll read them here and answer any questions from the webinar end of it. Now, so once we're done that, we're going to have a break from 10 o'clock to 10:30, and we'll be starting sharp at 10:30. For anybody in the webinar, we have a half-hour offline there. And then at 10:30, we'll start with our panel presentation, and I'll introduce our speakers at that point after the break that are going to be part of the panel. And they're going to do their presentations, and then we're going to have another question and answer period after that. So if you have any questions of the panelists, we ask that you direct them to whichever panelist you would like to answer the question. And again, online, you would do it via the chat, type it via the chat. And I'll repeat that again when we start into the panel discussion. So I'd like to welcome everybody here, and I'd like to introduce Lisa, and then I'm going to turn it over to her. So Lisa Heffern has been with the ministry for over 14 years, and she's been responsible for both apprenticeship programs and the modular programs in the Sudbury area. And during this time, Lisa was also the provincial field representative on the Mining Tripartite Committee, and she fulfilled that role for 7 years. And she's also been involved in the development and revisions of many of the mining modular programs. And she really has a lot of knowledge and experience in that area that we're looking forward to her sharing. So welcome, Lisa. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Diane. Good morning, everyone in the room and online. Thank you for joining us this morning. So this morning I'm going to go through what the signing authority is and modular programs. And later on we'll get into specifics about the signing authority audit guidelines and the checklist. So I won't go into a lot of detail the first thing. With that, we'll do that. So, first of all,
before you keep going, I have one question there. There's a lot of background noise. I don't know if everybody who's called in has got their mute buttons off or what, but I'm having a hard time hearing there because I'm hearing a lot of background speaking there.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you. And yes, if everybody could put their phones on their end, or their speakers on your end, on the webinar on mute, or *5. I can do *5.
Thank you.
The conference is in lecture mode.
They can't hear them. Okay. I mean, we can't hear them. Sorry, they can hear.
Okay, so is that much better? Okay, so let's begin. So the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development, formerly Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, is responsible for the modular training programs. And what modular training programs are is workplace-based competency training programs, and they're also designed in consultation with industry. So with the ministry, we have modular programming in mining, forestry, and construction. It provides hands-on training, and it's a system of certification that falls within the Occupational Health and Safety Act. It's training for your workers, and it's done in the workplace. For the mining programs, it is legislated through the Section 11 of the Regulations 845, or 854 of the Mines and Mining Plant under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And in that legislation, it states that employers are required that are engaged in mining to establish and maintain modular training programs. And if a particular situation is unclear with the ministry staff, we refer to the Ministry of Labor to determine which program that, that your operations fall within and which regulations they deem that are required for that particular program. So the ministry develops the program guidelines and the training standards in consultation with the established provincial industry advisory committees, which comprise of representatives from business, labor, and government. For the mining program, we have the Mining Tripartite Committee. The ministry staff administer all of the training programs, and the ministry also accredits the trainees by issuing proof of accreditation. And that's in the form of a transcript or a certificate of achievement or a certificate of qualification. So how does the employer establish a ministry modular training program? So to establish a program, an employer applies to the ministry field office to become a signing authority in that particular program. So that would depend on what type of work that your particular company is doing, whether it's an underground mining operation, surface mining, diamond drilling, underground or surface, and whether or not it's a service type company that's going down underground to do their own work. A signing authority must be the company owner or an employee designated by the company to become the signing authority. So that's the responsibility of the company owner or the most senior person of that company to determine who will be the signing authority. In many companies, in the smaller ones, it is the company owner that is the actual signing authority. The signing authority must know the training requirements for that specific mining program. So again, if you're unfamiliar with which program you would fall under, that would be referred to our ministry staff, and if we're unclear with what particular program that would be, then it would be referred to the Ministry of Labor for determination on that. The signing authority should also be highly skilled or knowledgeable in the operations related to the specific program that you're requesting signing authority in. And you have to be knowledgeable of the training or be directly involved in the training. Now, a signing authority can be the trainer, but you can't sign yourself off for a particular module. And usually that wouldn't be necessary because if you are if you are a trainer for that particular module and program, you would already have the accreditation, so you wouldn't be required to be signing off. You also have to be able to identify which approved training agencies will be used to train your company employees. And that is your responsibility as the signing authority. The ministry does not identify which trainers you're to use. We don't validate whether the trainers have the proper credentials to train. That is the responsibility of you as a signing authority to determine that and to ensure that they have all of the proper credentials in order to train the particular or your employees in their particular modules. You must ensure and maintain that quality training for company employees is ongoing. And you have to ensure that employees have demonstrated competency in the modules that are outlined in the training standard. Now, each program has its own training standard, and it has all of the performance objectives in there. And you have to ensure that the trainer is only signing off on those modules once that individual has demonstrated their level of competency. You as the signing authority must also sign the training reports and maintain the training records for the company employees. So it's very important and critical that when an individual is signed off and accomplished everything, that you're submitting the training report to the ministry for accreditation. But you want to ensure that you're maintaining, maintaining that copy of your training records in your company files so that they're accessible at any given point in time. You must submit the training reports and application to the local ministry office, and any one of the offices in Ontario will accept those and process them. We also have online registration that we can give the companies access to our system so that they can enter the modular training applications and training reports directly themselves. You would not be able to print a transcript or be able to view what modules people have from previous times, but you can enter them in yourselves, and that way you wouldn't be sending the paper copies to the ministry. You would still be responsible for signing them and maintaining the copies in your own companies. We have a number of companies in Ontario that already have access to the ministry system to do so, and anybody that would like to have that opportunity would contact the ministry office to ask for access to the ministry to enter those reports and applications online themselves. And also, you may be called upon to describe the training received by company employees and provide evidence of its adequacy in a court of law. So that is your responsibility. So you have to ensure that the trainer is doing what they're supposed to be doing and signing off at the level of competency of the employees, and you have to be able to testify to that if need be in a court of law. The ministry's training consultant, which is what I am, also has a key role in signing authorities and monitoring and the modular programming. The establishment and maintenance of the program is the responsibility of the employer. However, the ministry training consultant must exercise due diligence in covering each of the following steps with the employer and the signing authority applicant to ensure that the client understands their full responsibilities. So when it comes time for you as an employer or a company to have signing authority or to change your signing authority, you would contact the ministry office, and a training consultant like myself would meet with you and go through all of the program guidelines, the audit guidelines, and the checklist of the signing authority to ensure that you fully understand what your responsibilities are, and to also verify whether or not you are qualified to become a signing authority. We also provide you with this program-specific information. We review the guidelines and the requirements, and we ensure that the signing authority and the employer sign the signing authority application form acknowledging that the signing authority understands the requirements and their responsibilities. And that training consultant may also conduct a work or training site visit if we deem necessary. The training consultant then recommends remedial steps for the signing authority application process if the application is incomplete or rejected. So at any given point in time, if we don't feel satisfied, comfortable that you as an individual would meet the signing authority requirements, we would explain why and how and what needs to be done to meet that requirement, or maybe it's a different person. We would explain and instruct the signing application or signing authority what the reporting responsibilities are and what that process is. We would explain the audit guidelines, which we will be going through at the next half of the session. And we would complete the signing authority application and the checklist with the employer or its designate. And if a program does not have specific program signing authority guidelines, then the generic signing authority guidelines would apply. So each of our main programs have their very own specific program guidelines. But for some of our programs that don't have the guidelines developed, we have the generic guidelines that we would use for those. Excuse me. Once we're satisfied with that, we go through the checklist. We would then recommend approval to our manager, who would then sign off, and you would be approved as the signing authority for that particular program and for your company. The training consultant may also act as a material or expert witness in court if required. And any change to the company's signing authority is handled in the exact same way if it's a brand new signing authority for a company. We would go through the same process, the same forms, and this is for any changes, new signing authorities, or additions. Excuse me for a minute. So once your signing authority is approved, you will receive a certificate with the employer's, your signing authority's name and your employer ID number. That employer ID number is very important because it's attached to all of your applications and training reports. Of course, I'll get a tickle right in the middle of this. You'd register your workers into the appropriate program by completing the application for the modular training form. I need another drink of water. So once you complete the modular training applications and the training reports, one copy is sent in to the ministry, one copy is given to your employee or the trainee, and one copy is kept for yourself as the signing authority for your modular training records. The signing authority provides the training standard to the trainee or your employee and updates by signing off on the skill sets as appropriate. That training standard book is the property of the employee or the trainee. They are to keep that book. It's recommended that as a signing authority that you would have can make a copy of that book and keep it in your employee's files. And if that employee no longer works for you, you're to return that book to them when they leave. The signing authority ensures that all prerequisites are met if they're applicable to that particular module. On each of the training standards and on the beginning of each of the modules, the prerequisites are listed, and it's your responsibility as the signing authority to ensure that all prerequisites are met prior to that individual beginning the training of the module that they are going to be training in. The signing authority is to determine which modules company employees must undertake and which company employees have demonstrated competency in that training module. So it's you as the signing authority that must identify what training modules that particular worker must have in order to do the work that they're going to be performing in that mining environment. So you would identify that and rely on your trainer to carry out the training for that particular individual. The time frame for training and obtaining accreditation is usually, but not always, 1 year. So each particular program has their program-specific guidelines. And all of the program's modules must be completed within 1 year from the first date that individual starts their training. So you have 12 months for that individual to complete the training in that particular module. The signing authority must attest and report successful completion of the module or the program to the ministry by completing the modular training report. So I'm sure all of you have seen the modular training report. Once an individual completes a module, you would complete that training report with the name of the module, or the number of the module, the name, and the date that the person completed it. You would sign it, and the employee would sign it and send it into the ministry. You do not have to wait until they complete until they complete 2 or 3 or 4 modules. When they complete that one module, you should be sending it into the ministry so that that accreditation takes place. The signing authority ensures that the trainer of record keeps their qualifications current as well. As I said before, it's your responsibility as the signing authority to ensure that the trainer meets all of the trainer qualifications and that they are keeping theirs current, so that if a module is updated or changed, you want to ensure that that trainer has been refreshed and is up to date on that module. The signing authority will conduct an annual audit and retain copies of company training records for access to the Ministry of Labor. The Ministry of Labor at any time can go into your workplace or mining site and request the training records of the individuals that are working there. And they have done so. And they want to ensure also that you're maintaining those training records and that the employees are accredited in the modules that they're, for the work that they're performing. Administrative staff in our office will review for completeness of the training applications and the training reports, and to ensure that the signing authority identification number and signature are accurate on the forms, and then they're the ones that enter them into the system for accreditation. If our staff find that there's anything missing on a particular training report, and it's something that's simple that doesn't require a change, our staff will call the signing authority to verify some of that information. If there's particular information that is missing or incorrect, that training report will be returned to the signing authority, and they will attach a note as to what's missing or why it can't be processed. The modular trainers must have completed a Train the Trainer program, and in each of the guidelines, it determines or identifies what a Train the Trainer program must consist of. It's not a 1-day or a 2-day Train the Trainer program. It's usually a 3 to 5 day program, but you have to ensure as the signing authority that your trainer has a Train the Trainer certificate and that the program that they took meets the requirements of a Train the Trainer program that is identified in the program-specific guidelines. The trainer must be highly skilled in their area of expertise, and they must be trained in application of the Act and regulations pertaining to the specific modules being instructed. So they have to have an idea, and they must know why they're doing what they're doing and what is the regulations and enforcement part of that. They must be trained in your company standards. They have to understand that they're training your company employees and what are your company standards, so that they're training to that and passing on that knowledge and expertise to the workers. They have to prepare lesson plans and outline the course material to be used. And they must be certified or accredited in the program and specialty modules that they're going to be training in. And this requirement varies according to the particular program. For example, for the supervisory programs, they don't have to be accredited in the supervisory program themselves, but if you're looking at the underground Common Core, they must be accredited in that particular module themselves in order to be teaching it. For you to verify that, you would want to ask that trainer for a copy of their training transcript to ensure that their module is there for the program that they're teaching in. Competencies required by the trainer. The trainer is responsible for training employees, recommending to the signing authority those who demonstrate competency in their particular program. So you are putting a lot of responsibility on that trainer, but that responsibility falls back on you. So you want to ensure that that trainer is only signing off that individual when they are fully competent in that particular module that they're training the employee in. The trainers can be internal, so you can have your own trainers that are on your own in your own employment to train your employees, or you can use an external trainer. Either way, you are responsible for that trainer. The ministry may have trainer contact information, but we do not endorse any of the trainers. Okay? The signing authority can be a trainer, but cannot train or sign off on their own training. If you, as a signing authority, requires training, then you would have the trainer that trained you co-sign your modular training report before you sent that in to us. Now, I know on the training report it doesn't have a spot for a co-signature, so they would just sign underneath your name as the signing authority. And you would refer to any program guidelines for other specific trainer qualifications. As I said before, if incomplete, staff contact the signing authority to advise on the missing information and re-instruct the employer in the process if required. We return the training reports to the signing for correction if the staff cannot add or amend the data on the form. Now, we've instructed our administrative staff that they're not to change anything on a signing authority training report or training application. If it's just the ID number is missing, then we can put that in because that's validated through our system. But if there's a date missing for a module completion or anything like that, then that's not something that we will add because you've already signed off on that training report and we can't add anything after your signature's on there. Employers must provide a signed Freedom of Information release in order to access a copy of the worker's trainee transcript, okay? In the past, we used to, once a training report was entered into our system, we would issue a transcript automatically to that particular individual. We're no longer doing that. We haven't done it for a number of years because people move, address changes, so every time we would send something out, we would get a lot of them returned. So now, if an individual wants a copy of their own transcript, they can call in. We will validate information to verify that it's them calling in, and then we can email them a copy of their transcript through an encrypted email. But we will not release a copy of a transcript to their employer unless we have a Freedom of Information release signed and sent into our office to do so. The transcript is the proof of training and accreditation that the Ministry of Labor looks for and is issued for, it gets updated each time a module is completed. In certain situations, staff under the direction of our manager may initiate the process for a signing authority suspension or revocation. That's the ministry's determination to do so. And in most cases, a person or company found to be in violation by the Ministry of Labor will be directed to, to the ministry for redress. So in these situations, staff under our manager's direction would follow the process for signing authority suspension or revocation. And directions to comply issued as a result of a violation are usually time sensitive and receive staff priority. The process for review of a signing authority may be triggered by other circumstances such as receipt of a written complaint or for issued by the ministry staff. In these situations, staff under the direction of our manager would follow the process for a signing authority suspension or revocation as above. Excuse me. An employer may request to change their signing authority designate at any time. This cancels the existing signing authority on that particular program for the company. If applicable, the ministry staff advise the employer of the need to reapply for signing authority. So we cannot transfer signing authority to a particular individual. A current signing authority would be canceled and a new one would be done in the exact same process of reviewing the guidelines and responsibility. If a signing authority leaves the company's employment, this cancels the company's signing authority. The employer will need to reapply for a new signing authority, reappoint somebody. It's not portable from company to company either. So if you're signing authority with your current company and you move over to another company in the same mining environment, you are not automatically able to retain your signing authority. Your signing authority with your current company gets canceled, and then the new company that you go to will need to have you redesignated as the signing authority, and we would need to go through the same process again. A signing authority may request that their signing authority be canceled at any time, and the employer may need to reapply for the new signing authority. It's the responsibility of the employer that if the signing authority leaves the place of employment, that they're to notify the ministry right away so that that signing authority will be revoked and then a new signing authority put in place as that employer has designated. So this is the modular training application. I'm not sure if you can see it clearly or not. Most of you have seen it before, but I just wanted to point out that this particular application, that's to put your employee into the modular training program that they need to be required to be trained in. So that's only a one-time application. So once you hire an employee and you put them into a particular program, you must complete this application, send it into our ministry for processing. You do not wait for them to complete all of their modules in a particular program before you send this in. You don't fill it out and send it in every time you send in a modular training report with the completion of a module. So that's only to put them into the program. Now with a lot of our programs, because the Common Core is required to be done prior to the individual beginning work, then that's fine for you to complete the application and send it in once they complete their first 4 modules, because that's usually done in a shorter period of time. But if you find that in a particular program, depending on your mining operation or what program you're training to, you would send this in first, and then you would begin the training on the module, and once that module is completed, then you would send in the modular training report. And this is your modular training report here. So you have to make sure that you're putting down the proper name, the proper program, the identification number of your particular employee, the modules that they completed and the date that they completed. You want to ensure that your worker, your trainee, is signing this and dating it as well, that you are, that they are acknowledging that you are sending this in this training report for their accreditation. And then down at the bottom is where you would certify as the signing authority that the information above and that the completion and competency of that training module is done, and you're going to sign and date that. If this is a training report that you're completing for yourself as the signing authority, just down at the bottom, beside your name, you would put down also, find a spot to put your trainer's name and have your trainer's signature. And this is the signing authority application. So when a ministry staff like myself would meet with you to grant you signing authority, once we complete going through all of the program or establishing that you are qualified to be the signing authority for the company, and reviewing all of the program guidelines and the procedures and processes that are to be in place, we would complete this application, go through the checklist, and ensure that you fully understand what your responsibilities are, and that once that's done, then you would also sign off on it, and the company owner or the senior person that's designating you as the signing authority would sign off on it. The training consultant also signs off on it, and then once that's recommended to the manager of the ministry, once that manager signs off on it, now you're approved as the signing authority for your company. It gets entered into our system, and that's when the certification certificate is released with your employer ID number on it. I just wanted to say one other thing is that you're not able to transfer your signing authority. So if you're currently the signing authority with your company and you have to go out of town or somewhere for 2 weeks or 1 month or 6 months, you can't appoint somebody yourself to say, okay, I'm going to be gone, I need you to sign these off for me. If that's something that has to happen and you're going to be gone for any length of time, that the training reports and applications can't wait, then you would need to notify the ministry office. We would cancel your signing authority. We would give you the new person a signing authority, and then when you returned, we would cancel that individual and give it back to you. Okay, so there is no transfer of signing authority or temporary signing authority or backup for the particular programs. And now I'll take some questions if I can. I need to undo the phone. Okay. Okay, if you have any questions, just type them into the chat on your computer, and I'll also take computers from the audience here in the room, or questions from people here in the room as well. Yes?
I have a question. One of the bullets you have here says the time frame for training attaining accreditation is usually, but not always, 1 year.
So the question was that I had said that the time frame for training is usually 1 year, but not always. There's in some of the particular programs, there may be 1 or 2 modules that may be needed to go past the 12-month period, depending. But that's specific to a particular mining program and mining modules, and that's at the determination of the Ministry of Labor inspector. When they're there, if that individual has not completed that module within 12 months, they will verify what the rationalization is and determine whether that's acceptable or not. Thank you. Yes?
Lisa, just the 1 year requirement, I guess there was a couple other things. Let's say there was a termination of employment or a switch of job and then you're back. That might be one of the reasons why it took longer than a year to actually complete.
Yes. And that's a comment from one of our representatives here, is that it could take longer than 12 months, because if an individual started training with one company and then left that company, or there was a break in employment for some reason, that training would stop, and then they would start again when they started at another company or when they returned to their employment. Now, that information needs to be fully documented in the training records so that the Ministry of Labor inspector, when he's there, can identify and discuss with you why the 12 months is not completed. And that's a very critical point for all programming, especially for the signing authorities, is that you must document everything, put it in the employee's training files. One of your responsibilities that we talked about for maintaining training for new and existing employees is that you must ensure that that worker is still functioning at the same level that they were when they were first trained, and that you need to send them for retraining or have them retrained if you find that they are starting to not function at that competency level, or if they're starting to take shortcuts or any way. So when you do retrain somebody, you would not submit another training report to the ministry, because once the training a module is recorded with the ministry, that's a once lifetime module record on their transcript, but you should be documenting that, putting it in the employee's file to as backup that you have had that individual retrained on the date and what was done and who did the training, so that you have that as your due diligence and your responsibility for the competency of your employees. We have a question?
Yes, from the web. Scott is asking, do you have a format that you want the annual audit of the program, EXSMCC, done by the signing authority?
Yes, the question was is if there is a format that we want done for the audit. The audit, it's not so much of a format that we want. There's a checklist that is available to the signing authorities, and we're actually going to go into that at 10:30 in great detail and go through what the audit guidelines are and what that checklist is.
Another question from Andre. For the 0 to 8 ton crane training, does the trainer have to be a hoisting engineer, or can someone who is already trained on the 0 to 8 ton and has trained the trainer give this training?
If they're training on the 0 to 8, they have to be accredited in the 0 to 8, and they should have their train the trainer as well. And that can be done with an internal or an external trainer for the company. And that particular program falls within the Ministry of Labor's Construction Act and Regs and Act, and that says that you must have written proof of completing the training for 0 to 8. The 0 to 8 program does not require that you have to be accredited now with the ministry, but if that's how you want your written proof of accreditation, then there's other procedures that have to take place as well, as which includes testing. So for a particular hoisting engineer 0 to 8 training, I would suggest that you contact the ministry office directly, and a training consultant there can go through all of your various options for that particular program. Yes, in-house.
I hear it says only one person per company can be signing authority.
That's right.
How does that work if you're registered in several different programs?
So the way that it says that on the modular training application, it says only one person per company can be signing authority. The question is that how can that happen if there's a number of programs within a particular company? So because that signing authority application is only for one program, that's why it says it on that application. But for a particular company, you can have as many signing authorities as you want, but only one person per company. So if you have, if you need signing authority for 770010, you can have one signing authority. And then if you have 770225, that could be a different person. So you can have a different person per program, but you can't have two signing authorities for one program for the same company. Question, yes.
Lisa, what is the time frame for getting a new signing authority?
The question is what is the time frame for getting a new signing authority? Usually that can be done fairly quickly. It depends on which office you're dealing with and how busy that particular office is. In the Sudbury area, if you were to call us today, myself or one of my colleagues would set up an appointment, usually within the same week or the next week, for you to come in. We'd go through the program with you, and as long as you can get the proper signatures, that can all be done within the same week. Oh, we're really ahead of schedule here. Okay, more questions. Yes?
Do you have a signing, a standard audit signing form? Or a standard audit form for whatever module?
Yes. So the question is do we have a standard audit form for the particular program? So what we have is the signing authority audit guidelines, and attached to that is the audit checklist. That's not specific to each particular program. It's for modular training program, signing authority program as a whole. So we're going to go through that in a lot of detail at 10:30, and we'll give you all a copy of that as well. And is the presentation and the copies all going to be available to the people that are online as well? Okay, so we can, those of you that are online that have registered, we can send you copies of the presentations and the documents within the next couple of weeks after.
We'll upload them to our resource.
Oh, okay, so that's great. So all of the presentations and documents will be uploaded to Workplace Safety North resource site, and you'll be able to access them there. Okay, more questions? Yes?
We're a service industry,
yes.
Mining, and there's the Modular Training Basic Underground Hard Rock Mining Service Type Common Core.
Yes.
But we ended up going to a site that was not hard rock mine, and when I contacted your office, I was told that we could not get registered. We couldn't have a signing authority. We couldn't register for this because we're not in that business of mining. So is there a service type for every type of mining?
Great question. So the question is that we have a company representative here that's from the service industry, servicing the mining industry. So they don't qualify for signing authority for 770010 in the underground environment or for surface mining because they're performing their own work. They're non-productive mining employees. So the service type program 770225 is for companies that are not engaged in mining in an underground environment and doing productive mining, but they are doing their own work in an underground environment. So that program is for companies to have service type accreditation when you go underground to do your work in an underground environment. There is not a service type program for surface mines or for soft rock mines. So although you cannot be accredited, you cannot accredit your employees in that type of environment, you can use the modules to train to and document that you have trained them in the environment of a surface mine and just keep that on file. You just can't get signing authority for that and send it in for accreditation. Only if you're going to an underground work mine environment would you are required to have the service type Common Core and train your employees to that.
So what you're saying is the mining companies need to be aware of that so that they are not asking us to provide that to them before we come to site.
The surface mine?
Yes.
Yes. So the question is that the mining companies, the surface mining companies, should be made aware of that so that when a mining supply service company is going to a surface mine site, they're not requesting their service type accreditation for that. And yes, that is accurate, that the surface mining companies should be aware of that, it is not a requirement for service type companies to have that accreditation. So that's something that we can bring back to the Ministry of Labor and the Mining Tripartite Committee to bring that information back to the surface mining companies and reminding them and letting them know that there is not a requirement for service type training and accreditation for those companies. Good, thank you.
All right, so just so I'm clear, if a company were to provide services underground that require that service type on board, how would they get accredited, or how would that get?
They would qualify. So the question was that if a service type company is going underground to do work, how do they qualify and get accreditation for the service type Common Core? So let's just take this one step at a time is, I think, the easiest way. A company that is performing a function or a service underground in a mining operation that is not doing production mining would contact the Ministry for signing authority. we would meet with that company, we would review what are they going underground to do, determine that they do qualify for the Basic Underground Common Core Service Type, which is 770225. We would then give them signing authority, and then that signing authority would ensure that any of the workers that have to go underground in a underground mining operation would need to receive the 4 modules Common Core before they go underground to do so. Does that answer your question? If that company contacted us and said that we're going to be going to a surface mine and they want to receive signing authority for the service type Common Core, based on our discussion, we would find out that they're going to a surface mine, and therefore we would inform them that that's not a requirement, and therefore they don't qualify for signing authority for that.
Lisa, Scott is asking for surface miner modular training. Is there a guidance document that exists for workers to have up to a year to be trained in their specific modules once completed, 50-30, 50-31, 50-32?
Yes, the question was is there a document that identifies that a worker is to complete their modules within the 12 months for the surface mining program? And there's not a document that is given to the worker, but as a responsibility of the signing authority, that's your responsibility to ensure that that worker has completed their modules within the 12 months from the date that they started training in that particular module. And that's identified in the signing authority guidelines. Did that answer your question, Scott? Okay. Other questions? One of the things that I wanted to say, too, is that all of these programs have been developed by the Mining Tripartite Committee and subcommittees that are with representatives from labor and management in industry of that particular mining program. So it's not necessarily just the Mining Tripartite Committee that develops and works on these particular modules and programs, but they reach out to industry representatives and workers to sit on subcommittees which get involved in it, and it's very intensive work to do a review of each of the programs because they go through each of the performance objectives word by word. Discussions take place as to what's happening in the environment of that particular program, and they're looking at what is required for an industry as a whole in the province, not for just what's happening in Northern Ontario or what's just happening in Southern Ontario. So each of these programs are developed in conjunction with Management and Labor and the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development Resources for the industry as a whole per program in Ontario. Okay, so it's not specific to one area or one company. So we try to get them reviewed as often as possible. As industry changes and the needs change. However, it is a very large job to do, and it does take a lot of time. And then those changes have to go through, if there's legislative changes, that takes even more time before the changes to programs can be implemented. If there are any changes to programs or modules, the ministry does send out notification directly to the signing authority that we have on record. So you've probably received some changes in the spring for the underground 77010 and 225. So that information and guidelines and program changes go directly to the signing authority, and then it's up to the signing authority to ensure that the people that need to know what's happening and what the changes are, specifically your trainers that you're using. More questions? The modules that we also have are there for you to use as a resource and to training. an example of using a particular module to train but not receive accreditation would have been for the service type industry, where before we would only accredit module U000001, 002, and then we added 12. But a lot of employers were asking for, can we accredit the workers in utility vehicle, because that's something that is used. There's a module that exists for it, but we can't credit for it. So up until this past spring, we were saying, yes, definitely train to it using our modules so that you're ensuring that the person is actually receiving the proper training and following proper procedures, but just keep that training on file in that employee's records, and then, but it couldn't be sent to us for accreditation. That's now changed since May, and any service type company with signing authority that their employees are using the utility vehicles underground should be, or must be, trained and accredited to that particular module now.
Do we have a year to catch up on that one?
It's not necessarily a year of catch-up. The training is how long does it take for a year. So if somebody was already trained on utility vehicle, you as a signing authority can, if you want to do a demonstration of skill and ensure, because they were trained, say, 2-3 years ago, you can do a demonstration of skill and then sign off on a training report, send that into us, and we'll accredit them for the utility vehicle. And that's the same thing for any of the modules. If somebody was previously trained on a module and they came from another company or wherever, or within your own company, and they weren't accredited in that module, you can't just, as a signing authority, fill out a training report and send that in to us, assuming that that individual is still functioning at that level. What you would want to do is do a demonstration of skill, ensure that that person is functioning to the levels that they were trained in, and then sign the training report and send it in to us with that date on it.
If I get this right, if we have an employee that's been registered as 225 and switched positions to move into a hard rock mining job now,
yes.
Is this a matter of us switching programs?
No.
Do we have to switch programs?
Yes. So the question is that if a company has an employee that is currently registered in service type 770225, but now he's gotten a new or she, now they have received a new position, and now they're going to actually be in the production mining program. So you do need to register that individual into the new program, which is 77010. Modules 0, 1, 2, and 12 were accredited to 770225. But now that he's or she has gone into 7710, the underground program, we need to have those modules accredited to that program, because now the prerequisites are not being met under that particular program because the accreditation is under 225 for specialties. So what you would want to do in that particular instance is do a demonstration of skill of that individual, that they are still functioning in all 4 of those modules that they were when they were first trained in 225, send in a training report that would identify the 77010 program with those 4 modules, the date that they were trained, but you would be signing it off today as of today, the current date of demonstration of skill was done. You would document in their employee file that you did another demonstration of skill and put that in there, and that's how the accreditation was taking place.
So their official transcript down the road would show hard rock and service.
Exactly. Same modules, yeah. The module has to be attached to the program that the individual is working in. If you find a person comes to you with a copy of a training report that they were signed off on a particular module, but that module is not showing up on their transcript, that could mean that the employer that they were working for filled out the paperwork, but it never made it to the ministry office for processing. So So now you have an employee that has a copy of a training report but no official record from the ministry. So it's your determination as the signing authority to identify whether that individual should be sent back or completely retrained, or if you want, have a demonstration of skill done, and then you can sign off on that training report and send it in. The signing authority's name on that training report has to match with what we currently have on file. So you can't just take the old training report and send it in with somebody else's signing authority signature on that. You can co-sign under it with a new date saying that you're validating that information, and you've done so through a demonstration of skill, and then send that in with the current information. Okay, we have an online question.
Pursuant to Scott's earlier question about the surface minor modular training and the guidance for documents that exist for workers for up to be trained for a year, in specific modules. He's asking, further to my previous question, for example, a worker has a year to gain knowledge of using a crusher. Does the employer have to ensure that a worker trained in the crusher oversees the trainee?
Yes. So did everybody hear that question? Okay. So yes, the employer has to oversee and supervise that worker until they are fully competent in the skills that they are performing. They should not be working alone until they are fully competent and signed off on that particular module. I hope that answers your question. If not, send in a new one or an expansion on it. Yes?
Is there any talk of standardizing in Canada the training? The main issue is Quebec and Ontario and how they marry.
I don't have any definite information on that, but I do know that there is discussions taking place to try and do that between all of the provinces. In the past, we used to, the Quebec modules and the Ontario modules complemented each other, and we could accredit certain Ontario modules from Quebec if training was taking place in Quebec. Since the program changed back in 2012 for 77010, that equivalency does no longer exist because the comparison between the Quebec modules and the Ontario modules has not been done. But I believe there is an organization, is it MIR? MIR, it has been working probably for the last 6 years on, which is a mining industry, Human Resources of Canada, on trying to standardize the modules between all of the provinces. There's nothing in place right now to say that a module training taking place out in British Columbia is equivalent to an Ontario at this point. But I know that there is discussions on it, and I know that there's ongoing discussions with Ontario and Quebec again as well.
I go back to that last question from the gentleman about the 1 year
Sure.
crusher operator. We're going to train a crusher operator. We're going to license them on our site.
Yes.
He has a year to get the specialty for that. So he doesn't have to be supervised the whole time. Doesn't we have a trainer with no time? Just has to have the trainer until he sign off. We have 1 year now to register him in that specialty.
No. So you have to register. You have to start training him for 1 year, and the training has to be completed by the end of the 12 months. Registered with us,
so
yes.
Especially with Onvo, but to operate the crusher on alone without the specialty, he can do that for up to a year, as long as he's being trained to do it.
Well, the crusher is a specialty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That has to fill out right away. That has to be filled out within a year. The specialty module sent in, registered. So he can operate the crusher in the meantime.
Not if he's not fully trained.
No, he's fully trained, but just the specialty has to
Well, if he's fully trained, then that accreditation should be sent in to us right away.
Well, we have a year to send it in.
No, you need to send it in when he's fully trained. The 12 months is you have 12 months to get that person fully trained. When that individual has completed their training, that accreditation piece should be sent, or the training report should be sent into us right away for accreditation. So, because what's going to happen too is that if that individual's on site working on the crusher, and he's by himself, the Ministry of Labor inspector is going to show up there and he's going to say, let me see your accreditation qualifications to be working here alone on this particular, well, I don't have it. Well, my book's all signed off. Well, then why is the accreditation piece not in? So that's when the Ministry of Labor would go to you as the signing authority saying that this particular accreditation for this individual should be coming in to be completed. And if he's not fully trained and accredited and he is working alone, then that's a different circumstance. More questions? Scott, are we okay with me answering your question? Good. Okay, it's 20 to 10. We haven't, awesome.
Do we have any more questions at all, either from online or the room? Dan?
Just one for people that are using the electronic one-key entry system. Just a question where when we used to do the paper method, this slide is saying on, staff return the original forms with signing authority's discretion, you cannot add or amend data on the form. When some people have the electronic entry, they'll go to register somebody and say, I typed their name in wrong, or maybe I've registered with programs but don't have the correct report, like the supervisory one. Is there something in place to kick that back? There's no one physically looking at the paper, me entering it electronically, it goes in, I've never got a rejection back. Not that we've never done it wrong, but I would never get a rejection back.
That's a good question. So the question was, with the electronic one-key access to the ministry system, if a company, we've given the company access to entering modular training applications and training reports to our system. So if an individual from that company that has access has entered in a module training report and has entered it in incorrectly, the question was, is there any checkpoints on the system that would kick back or not accept that module for a particular individual? Whereas if it's a paper copy that comes into the ministry, we can see if there's something wrong and we wouldn't enter it. So basically, if you're entering a module into the training, from a training report into our system yourselves, it's you as the signing authority that takes responsibility for that. So when the module gets entered in, the copy of the training report is printed out for your signature, so you would be able to verify that if something was entered incorrectly, if it was the wrong module or a wrong date or something. So before you sign that, you would want to make sure that the information that was entered came out correctly. If there was a mistake made, you cannot reverse that. You would need to contact the ministry office, and we would just reverse that for you. Okay? The system is quite wonderful, and I do highly encourage companies that do submit a lot of training applications and training reports to consider requesting access to enter your own applications and training reports online. It's instant, and then once the training is completed, you enter it into the system, and then you can send a Freedom of Information release over to the ministry office, and we can print a transcript for you, and everything's done, and you have everything on file and in record with proper signatures. So you don't have to mail anything in, you don't have to drop anything off, you don't have to wait for us to enter those into the system. Our traditional timeline for entering training reports into the system is 2 weeks, and that's pretty much standard for across the province. Unless we have very crazy busy times, it could be longer. If there's an emergency situation or urgent situation, most offices will be able to accommodate you with a special request to have a training report entered in a shorter period, usually within a day. I know the people in our office are quite good for that, in the Sudbury office, to do that. But if you had access to our system, you would be able to do that within minutes notice, as long as the person that we're giving access to is available to enter that in. The other thing with the one key, it's called access to our ministry system, is that the individual entering into the documents into the system is called an employer subscriber, and you can have as many employer subscribers as you like within your company. It doesn't have to be the signing authority, but you as the signing authority do take full responsibility for that individual entering into the system, and you still have to sign off those training applications and training reports. They must be printed once they're entered. You sign them, validating that they're accurate and that you attest to that training. Yes?
Question. How about any changes coming to the modular training booklet dealing with changes to legislation? Example, surface minor modular training or supervisor training to deal with hazard assessments, legislation changes in January.
I don't know of any of that. The question was, is there any legislative changes specifically with the surface mining program? The legislative changes are directly with the Ministry of Labor. The programs are with my Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development. So unfortunately I won't be able to ask that question, but perhaps we can send that question, or we can you can send it to the Mining Tripartite Committee if you want to send that in as we can forward that to the Mining Tripartite Committee for questions. Yes?
And how would we capture that?
That's a good question. The Mining Tripartite Committee is made up of industry representatives, and we can put a list on the site of the representatives that sit on the Mining Tripartite Committee representing the various mining operations, and you would contact that particular representative that sits on the committee representing your particular industry. So we have representatives from Hard Rock, Soft Rock, Surface Association, Service Types Associations, and so on. So that any direct questions can be sent directly to what would be your representative on the Mining Tripartite Committee. And Diane, we can get a list of that committee put up on the site for them to access?
On our website, yes.
Okay, great. So that, again, that will be on the Workplace Safety North resource site, where the presentations will be as well. Yes?
Just a comment. We do send in release forms with transcripts by PDF.
Yes. Which is wonderful. So, yeah. So as long as the question or the comment was is that they send in the request for a transcript and they're emailed by PDF directly to the person at the company requesting them, as long as we have that Freedom of Information release signed, we can email you a PDF of that transcript. It's done through a secure website or a secure encrypted email, and you usually just have to follow the instructions when you open the email. You just create this 1-second account and it will release the transcript for you.
So Scott has a question.
Oh.
All the documents.
A different Scott?
All the documents, we want to know, are they posted in a central location on the website? If so, where are they located? So the MAESD documents, guidelines, FOI forms, program application forms, and modular training report forms.
Unfortunately, they are not available on a specific external site. But we can ensure that the guidelines that we currently have and the Freedom of Information release forms are also sent to Diane to be put on the Workplace Safety North resource site. The other way to get copies of the guidelines and training standards is to contact the ministry office in your area directly, and we will email them directly to you. The ministry is working on setting up a public access site for all the guidelines and resources and forms that you need. The training application, training reports are in triplicate, so you do need to request those from the office, and we'll send those to you as well. When we do have all of that available on an external site, it will be sent out to all signing authorities to let you know what that site is, but that's not going to happen for a bit. There's a lot of work that still has to be done with that so that we're ensuring we're having the most current and translated documents available. More questions? I'm hoping that everybody has the contact information for the ministry office in your location. What we can do, we had from our previous session last year, we had a listing of all of the ministry offices, their addresses and phone numbers. So we will put that up again on the resource site if it's not still there. When you do contact the ministry office, a lot of times we find that when people are contacting our office, they don't know who to ask for or how to get to the right person. So when you do call, specifically ask to speak to a training consultant responsible for modular programming. And then that way you will be able to speak to somebody that has the knowledge of what you're looking for, okay? The ministry does work with a lot of other programs, and there are a lot of training consultants in each of the offices that deal with various programs, and not all of them deal with modular programming. So make sure you ask for a training consultant specifically knowledgeable with the modular programming. Any other questions?
Anything else coming in online? Okay, I take it then that we don't have any more questions, and we have, the time is 9:48. 9:48. So we will, I think we'll do the break early, and so we'll start the break now, and then we'll reconvene at 10:20. So anybody that is online, we're going to do a break right now for a half hour and get set up for the second half of our webinar. So if you can do whatever you need to do on your end online, and then come back in and join us at 10:20.
Great, thank you very much. And if you have some other questions that come up while you're on break, we will be able to answer them during our other part of the presentation, because the audit guidelines and checklists go hand in hand with everything that we've just discussed. So if you have other questions that aren't related to specifically to the audit, we'll be able to answer those as well.
Yes. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa. I'd like to welcome everybody back to part 2 of the webinar, and welcome back online. And to everybody, our panel discussion on, actually we're zeroing in now on the auditing process and responsibilities of the signing authorities. And so that's going to be our focus for this last half. And I'm going to introduce all of our panelists. Then they're each going to make a short presentation to you. And then after they're finished the presentation, we're going to open the floor again to any questions. And as Lisa had mentioned, even if you have questions that come up that aren't specifically auditing, that surface while you're listening or anything, feel free to also ask those questions as well. So it'll be questions to do with anything around the auditing and anything to do with signing authority in general at the end with question and answer period. Any questions from the room thus far that need to be answered before we get into this? No? Okay, so I introduce everybody. I've already introduced Lisa, and I'm going to introduce people in the order in which they're going to present as well. So we have, Lisa, of course, is going to do the first bit on the actual guidelines and requirements around auditing. And then next to Lisa, we have Rick Schulis, who is the provincial mining specialist with the Ministry of Labor. And Rick joined the ministry in 2014, and he works out of the London office as an electrical mechanical inspector, and for that time, and then for about a year, and then as of September 2015, he took over the role of provincial mining specialist with the ministry. And Rick's been involved in revisions over the years as well with the Soft Rock Common Core modules, and he's performed many audits on company training systems as well. So it's quite knowledgeable in the training ends of things as well. And he's going to give us a perspective from the Ministry of Labor inspectors and what they would be looking for and those kinds of things when they do site visits around the auditing process. And then next to Rick is Mark Campbell from Ballet, and welcome, Mark. And Mark has he completed his secondary school. After he finished his secondary school education, he joined the mining industry back in 1988, where he worked as a development miner at Real Algam in Elliott Lake. And after that, he joined INCO around 1990, and he's been with them for 26 years, so lots of experience here to share with us with the company. And Mark has, during that time at INCO, which is now Valet, Mark held numerous roles, including development miner, mining production supervisor, training supervisor, operating superintendent, and he currently holds the title of Superintendent Learning and Development, and is assigning authority overseeing all of Valet's underground training requirements, along with the supervisory training requirements under the modular program. So he'll have lots of experience to share with us as well.
Morning.
And Mark also likes to spend time off. When he gets some time off, he likes to go to camp on Manitoula Island with his family, and he enjoys fishing, obviously, and lots of outdoor activities. And he was also really involved with the mine rescue for 15 years as well, another thing that he's done over the past as well, which also involves training big time. And then we have one person who couldn't make it today, and you may see that on the bio online. The biography was Aaron Hutchins, and unfortunately couldn't make it today, and so Mark's going to take over for both of them. And Aaron had been the signing authority for the surface portion of Valet. But they work together as a partnership anyway, so
we certainly do.
As good partners, Mark's going to take over. And next to Mark is Marcel Lafontaine, who is the manager of training at Cementation Canada. And welcome, Marcel. Marcel attended the Hillbury School of Mines between 1972 and 74, and he graduated as a mining technician. And he's worked over 25 years. He worked with Texas Gulf, a mining company in Timmins, Ontario, which changed hands several times over the years. Does a follow-through still exist in Timmins, of the company?
Well, they're still forever changing. I think Lakeshore is
It's Lakeshore now? It's
Glencore.
Glencore is current. Kids?
Yes.
And while there, Marcel had several roles, and he began as right from a nipper in the very beginning days, and he moved on as a jumbo operator, then a supervisor, and finally he became a second-line supervisor. And he also worked for other contractors as an equipment trainer and as an administration coordinator. And Marcel has been working with cementation since 2007, and he started at cementation as an equipment coordinator, and then moved on to being an estimator and is now manager of training. And something you might also, he noted to me, an interest that Marcel has is that he's an artist, and airbrushing is his specialty. So he's a multi-dimensional person here. And last but not least, at the end of the table, we have Dan Murphy, who is a safety and training specialist with Sudbury Integrated Nickel Operations, a Glencore company, a real handle. They have otherwise often shortened in industry as Glencore. And Dan graduated from Cambrian College's Metallurgy Engineering Technology program in 1981. And since then, he continues to be actively involved in the mining industry, and beginning in technical roles at Falconbridge and then Detour Lake, and then he returned to Sudbury in 1987 to join Falconbridge and progressed into a production supervisor role at Strathcona Mill in Auditing, and later in 1992 started the career path in health and safety. He was first a trainer and then became a safety training supervisor, which led to the current position of safety training specialist at Sudbury, INO, he's shortened Integrated Nickel Operations. And Dan obtained his Canadian Registered Safety Professional Designation, otherwise known as CRSP, in 2009, and he's currently responsible for legislative training programs and the health and safety programs for Sudbury operations. And he's an active member of many external committees in the Ontario mining sector, including the Mining Tripartite Committee, so he may be able to answer some questions about, on top of auditing in his own company that he'll present, but also some questions, if anybody has any, on some of the operations of the Mining Tripartite Committee, because he is chair of that committee presently. And he's also been on many of the subcommittees as well with that committee, and for a number of years, and quite knowledgeable about that side of from the Mining Tripartite Committee. He's also a member on Ontario Mining Association Safety and Training Subcommittee, and he acts as a resource internally in his company for safety and training supervisors and joint health and safety committee members, and also line management as well. So welcome, Dan. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just turn over the floor to Lisa, and as you formulate questions during their presentations and maybe note them, you could also note who you'd like to direct your questions to, and if it doesn't matter, you can just put general, and we'll decide who will jump in and do it, but if you may also want to direct it specifically to one person. So just put that in your question when you send it in online. And in the room, you can just tell it. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over now, and we're going to let Lisa go first and give us the overview of the requirements for auditing.
Thanks, Diane. And again, thank you to our panel for agreeing to come and discuss this very important topic, which I'm sure is very confusing at times for the signing authorities to really know what to do, how to do it, and what we're looking for. So that's the whole purpose of why we're here for the second part of this presentation, so that we can help you to do what you need to do and that we're all on the same page. So I'm going to go through what the audit guidelines are. So basically, every mining program has a signing authority audit requirement, okay? Now, what the audit is that the signing authority shall perform an annual audit to evaluate the effectiveness and the compliance with respect to the signing authority guidelines. Now, when we say annual audit, that means that it needs to be done every year if you have training happening, okay? If you're not doing any training within that 12-month or 1-year period, then you wouldn't be conducting an audit because you really don't have anything to audit. So if you did some training now and within the next 6 months or 8 months, you would want to do an audit to ensure that you're meeting the requirements of the program. But if for the next 12 months after that you haven't done any training, you wouldn't be required to do an audit in that time period because you don't have any trainers that are actually performing training, and you don't have any trainees to evaluate to ensure that it's being done properly. So that's something that we wanted to clear up right at the very start. So what does an audit include? The audit is an annual audit of your trainers and your instructors for your employees for that particular program, okay? So an audit is to be done on each program the assigning authority is responsible for. And you're going to evaluate the quality of the lesson plans so that you're ensuring that that particular trainer has lesson plans that they're following and that they're relative to the modular program and the requirements and performance objectives in the training standard. You're going to observe trainer teaching techniques for the 4 basic criteria of learning, behavior, delivery, and education. And you're going to also audit training performance, including the hands-on approach. So you're going to want to do a random audit. You're not going to call your trainers and say, I'm setting up an appointment to come in and do an audit of you. You're just going to show up, and you're going to know that they're there doing some training with your employees so that you will be able to observe and see what the trainer is doing. Then you can talk to your trainer and so on. And then also you'll be able to discuss things with your trainees that are actually receiving the training. So why are we doing all of this? The purpose is to ensure that the trainer's skills, the employee performance, and program quality remain current and at the highest standard throughout the province. The audit will also evaluate you as assigning authority. So you're going to be conducting this audit on yourself. You want to make sure that there's quality of training. You want to ensure that you have a maintenance of training record, and you want to make sure that you're determining the determination of competency of company employees for the modular accreditation. So I know you're saying now, well, of course I have training records, but at the same time, if you become a new signing authority, you want to audit what's happened before you. You want to ensure that the training records are there. You want to ensure that if you did a random check on any particular employees, that you can go to a training record, pull that record, everything's there that you want it to be there. And then also making sure that you're maintaining that standard to what is required. The Ministry and the Mining Tripartite Committee created a checklist to assist the signing authorities with the audit. Now, the reason being is that every guideline had a requirement in the program guidelines stating that an audit needed to be done and that you needed to audit the trainers. But we were hearing back from signing authorities and companies that, well, what is it exactly that you want in that audit? What are we supposed to do? We're not sure how we're supposed to do it and everything else. So the Mining Tripartite Committee developed a checklist as a resource for you to use. The checklist is not a mandatory requirement. It's a guide for you to use, and it's not limited to only what is on that checklist. You as the signing authority take responsibility for the audit, and you can add things to there and make notes and everything else. So it's not just something that you follow step by step by step. It's for you to use as a tool and a guide. The checklist has 4 components: the company training program, the signing authority accountability, the trainer accountability, and the trainee accountability. So an annual audit is required and is to be conducted for each program per company signing authority. So it's not just an audit per company. So if your company has 4 different programs and 1 signing authority, then that signing authority is responsible for auditing all 4 programs. If your company has 3 signing authorities and 3 programs, then each of those signing authorities is to audit their own program, okay? So that means that you should have 4 separate or 3 separate files with your audit in them. Results of the audit must be communicated to site senior management with any deficiencies identified. So you're going to audit yourself for training records. Of course, you're going to correct those. You're going to document that the training records weren't totally in order, this is what needed to be done and everything else. The trainers, if the trainers are lacking in certain areas, you want to be able to communicate that with the trainers as well. But you also want to make sure that your site supervisors, senior supervisors, are aware of these deficiencies because they're ultimately responsible as well. Here I go again. So you're going to communicate that. So next year when you're going to do your next audit, that audit report is going to be the start of your current audit. And you're going to identify any of those deficiencies to make sure that they were corrected. Excuse me. Results of the audit are to be kept on file for the Ministry of Labor inspectors to be able to access and request at any given point in time. So the audit's done, it does not get sent into the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development, and it does not get sent into the Ministry of Labor. You take that audit, you're going to sign it and date it, put attachments on it for notes that were taken and so on and so forth. You can also write on there or attach the email or meeting notes on how it was communicated to your site supervisor, and then that goes into a file so that if the Ministry of Labor shows up, they want to see that you've conducted an audit on your particular program, you'll be able to pull that out and give it to them for review. Okay? So the next pages are the actual signing authority audit guidelines. So the first part of it I just went through in bullet points. These are the first part of it is what is attached and included in each of the program signing authority guidelines. Okay, and then the following pages is what has been expanded on, which was developed by the Mining Tripartite Committee. So as you can see, the next page, the audit includes a review of the following and completion of the attached checklist as appropriate. This particular document, if you can't see it clearly for those of you online, we will be putting the PDF file full size on the Workplace Safety North resource site as well for you to access. But if you are a signing authority, you should already have a copy of it as well. So you're going to do an analysis of performance and of training needs. You're going to look at training design, instruction and facilitation, the evaluation of training, and coaching the application of training. So you want to make sure the main purpose is that your trainers are able to communicate and transpire the skills over to your employees properly and ensuring that those trainees, employees are obtaining the skills and knowledge that they need to be able to perform their job. You're also ensuring that they're going to be doing demonstrations of skill, not just telling them about what has to be done and how it's supposed to be done, but that you're teaching them how to do it. And I know that you may think, well, of course that's what they're going to do. When you're thinking of specialty modules, yes, of course they have to teach them how to actually perform that particular task and operate the equipment and everything else. But when it comes to the lesser skills, I don't know, scaling loose rock, for instance, the trainer's not going to stand there and show you how to scale loose rock and then sign everybody off and nobody's actually done it themselves. You want to make sure that that trainer is ensuring that each person, each employee has done a demonstration of skill and they've done it to a competent level before that trainee signs off on what they've been taught. or the trainer signs off on the competencies for that particular worker. And the importance of this is because you are ultimately responsible as the signing authority, and if, heaven forbid, you ever get called to court and you're asked, how do you know that this person was trained properly, you will have this audit checklist, you will have your resources available to you and all the documentation in your training files to be able to say, I know because I did this, this, and this, and I am 100% confident that the trainer was doing what he or she was supposed to be doing. So the next pages are the actual checklist, and as you can see, the first part of it is that the company establishment and maintenance of the training program. So the very first part of it is that the company has been given signing authority with the Ministry of by the Advanced Education and Skills Development for that particular program. So you want to make sure that you do have signing authority for the right program and that it's the current person and that it's up to date. So you, as a new signing authority taking over from somebody else, will need to make sure that that's what you have, okay? You want to also make sure that you have training files for employees. Are they part of the employee files, or are they separate trainee files, and where are they located? And how are you going to maintain those and keep them up to date? The next section is your signing authority accountability. Everything that we talked about in the earlier session about your responsibilities, you want to make sure that you're still functioning at that level, that you haven't gone on vacation for 3 weeks and asked somebody else to sign off for you, if you have access to entering the training applications and training reports into our One Key system, that you are actually reviewing them after they've been printed out and entered and signing them off before they go into the training record. So that's all part of it. These are all of the individual checkpoints that you should be going through to make sure that everything's functioning and working at the proper standard. The trainer accountability. Here again, you want to make sure, this is the important part where you're validating that the trainer that is doing the training for your employees is being able to train them properly so that your workers are being able to obtain that information. You want to make sure that the trainer that's doing the training has the proper credentials to be doing the training. You want to see a copy of their transcript with the modules that they've been accredited in for the training that they're doing, if that's the requirement for the program, that's in a trainer file, a copy of their transcript for that. That they have a Train the Trainer certificate, where did they get that certificate, what was included in that program that they took for their certificate, and so on. How are they preparing lesson plans? How are they training the workers? Are they, what tools and facilities and equipment are they using, and teaching techniques are they using to pass on that information? It's very important that your trainers, although they are probably past workers in the program that they're training in, but they need to be able to know how to train people properly. What are the different types of learners so that they're reaching every individual in the right way? So those are all the checkpoints there. And then to validate that some more, you have your trainee assessment. So you want to talk to your workers that are being trained by the trainer. You want to ensure that that they have the prerequisites. So you're going to show up for training, they're getting trained on a specialty module. You want to make sure that that trainee has the prerequisites completed to be even started training in that particular module. And how do you do that? You verify that they have their up-to-date transcript. Okay. Have they been authorized to operate the equipment and perform the task that they're currently doing? So the question earlier this morning was about the individual working by themselves. So when you're going down underground, you're going to check that person and validate whether or not they are competent to be actually operating that piece of equipment and doing the work that they're doing, if they are not particularly in that training part of their responsibility. And so those are the other checkpoints. So right now we have So at the bottom of the full document, which you can't see on the screen, there's not a spot there to sign and date it. We're having that revised as we speak. I'm just waiting for approval on it. So there will be a note section so that you can take notes. You can add other things to be checked. Don't only specifically stick with what's on the checklist. Add some more of your own, because you know as yourself other things that you may particularly want to know or look for. Document that as well. The more documentation you have, the better it is. So there will be a spot for you to say the date that the audit was conducted, and then it'll have a spot for your signature and a date that you've signed it off. And then you'll be able to file that and know where to get it the next time you start your audit for the following year. Okay, I'm going to pass this on over to Rick now, and he'll be able to continue with the audit.
Good question, Lisa. Would it be beneficial when to have three sponsors sign off, the trainer, the auditor, and the trainee on that same form?
Yes, we can do that. We can send that request in, but you wouldn't only be auditing one trainer because you're doing the audit for the program. Sometimes you may have 5 to 10 different trainers. So if you're going to do the audit for the program and per trainer, then you can put that on there. You can't, basically what you would do in the notes section is you can document which trainer you were actually evaluating. Same thing with trainees. You can document which workers you actually spoke with, and then that can revalidate the information that you have documented on here. Okay, Richard.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. My name is Rick Schoos with the Ministry of Labour, as identified earlier. We, the Ministry of Labour, enforce this piece of legislation, Section 11, within our mining regulations 854. The Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development sets the standard that must be met. When the legislation reads out that the employer shall maintain the program and the standard has been set. As an inspector, when we arrive on your work site to do an inspection as such, one of the primary areas that we do delve into is training. It is a key skill development that the worker must be going through, and experience and knowledge. So the first question I normally ask is proof of training. And believe it or not, it's very difficult to get sometimes. The worker will often say they're trained. They'll come up with every excuse. The supervisor will say, yep, he's been trained. He got trained over at Joe's pit or Joe's mine. But when you actually physically ask for it, they can't produce it. So having these documents readily available makes our job easier as an inspector, will make your job easier as an employer when that question comes to mind. Now, we do have other resources to be able to gather this information, but it makes it much easier if you could help us out by saying, here's the document, here's where they're located. And to just make a note on that, the key thing is the only legal document is that training transcript. It's not the registration form that you sent in to the ministry. It's that actual training transcript that comes back that says that individual has been registered, they are accredited with that program, and they are able to do that task as being signed off by all those individuals. Yes?
If that is the case, then why are you not sending that to the employer for them to see? Because if you're going to audit me and say, why don't you have Scott Lovelace's transcript, but I have to go through a different process to request it, and I have to have previous information, you know, or get it from them, which is difficult with some individuals. Why is the process not, they're registered to the program, they're accredited to this, and once a year we get a copy of the transcript? Again,
it was identified earlier, there was a problem with just sending the transcript out to the worker because many, many times the worker is very migrant, they move on. In just sending it to the employer, you can request that under an FOI request, stating that I want Rick's training records sent to this location, he signed off the FOI, and that can be developed. That's part of maintaining the program within your own circle. So you can request those documents, have those documents on file, so the they're available to us for inspection.
Can we not have it as automatic?
No. I could add to that too, is that it's a training and education, and it belongs to the individual and the worker. It's the same thing as going to a college or university. An employer cannot contact a university or a college or a training institution for training records of any kind that belong to an individual without that individual's knowledge or person. So although you may have long-term employees, and yes, that relationship exists, we don't know that at all times. You are the trainer of record, but that training belongs to the individual, not the employer.
So it's nice to be to have that automatic.
It would
It
be great,
won't.
It would be nice to be automatic.
Yes.
Rick, does the employee have to carry the official transcript with them at all times while he's working?
No.
By one of MWL and Timmins?
No. There's no requirement to have that transcript on person at all times. You have to be able to provide proof. Now, within a reasonable amount of time. I won't just shut you down right that moment in time saying, you can't prove to me right this second. Can we get these documents? Where are they located? How much time is it going to take? So those kind of avenues we can manage very easily. In an underground environment, I'm 10,000 feet underground. I know they're not there, but I know they're on surface. I can access them that day. For some operations, it may be a little more difficult. With the head office is the keeper of records. So I may have to get them faxed to me or something of those ways. But it's not mandatory that they have them on their person.
Another question, a contractor working on our site, that we don't have their hard copy files on our site. We know they're through our registration form. We know we've seen them on our process copy box. We've seen the transcript on there, not transcript, but it's been highlighted. Is that good enough for a contractor?
So what would start the process there is you as the primary employer have done your due diligence to say, yes, Rick has got the records, they provided us copies of them, but we don't have them on file. I would go to the secondary employer at that point for them to provide the records to me. In that case, I wouldn't be expecting you to. You've done your due diligence up front. But if you have not done your due diligence, then there's going to be a different conversation taking place at that point in time to be able to provide those records. And it's from questioning the worker at that point in time as to how deep we'll go into this audit at that point in time. If the worker tells me they've been trained, they show me great competency while either operating a piece of equipment or doing a task, we're pretty well satisfied. But if they're really edgy about what they're doing, how they're doing it, what they're doing, we're going to go a lot deeper. And that's when I'm going to go up to the signing authority, and we're going to be doing an audit at that point in time. Some of the biggest things that I find out there, the misconceptions, and it's been brought up today as well, is that I have 12 months to train this worker. They'll tell me that as an inspector. Is Rick been trained? I got 12 months to do it. But in the meantime, Rick is doing the task sole and on his own. That doesn't mean I have 12 months on my own to do that, to be finally signed off. As an employer, you have a due diligence when you take on a worker, when they are going to be assigned tasks, that hopefully within that year, you're going to complete that. You're not going to string them along for the entirety of the employment with your company. We want to make sure that they get qualified and get qualified successfully within a it's not that tight of a time frame. But in that time frame, within that 12 months, that trainee is learning the skill sets set out in the module. And they are being signed off on those skill sets as they achieve them. And until the whole module is complete, the training is not complete. So that individual cannot be out there working on their own, i.e. operating a scoop tram, bolting, those kind of avenues. They have to be with an accredited trainer. On the module, on the specific parts of the module that they have been signed off on, say they're setting up a jumbo drill. That's been covered off. They can do that task, but they can't be doing the drilling until they've been signed off on that specific task. So be very careful when they say 12 months. Read the rest of the legislation that says until they're accredited in that module, and they can do that work. The other one that really baffles me when I'm out there doing inspection is these workbooks. You've got many, many modules. You've got many, many skill sets that must be met. And I see 5 modules signed off on the same day, all in one day. And I have yet to find an employer be able to give me a decent defense on how that's done. How do you train a worker to do skill sets that would take months to complete, all in one day? Think about that when you're doing your due diligence and doing your information session, when the trainee and the trainer are sitting down, signing off those skill sets to say, yes, I have scaled today. I can do it successfully and repeatedly without assistance. Not to be able to sign off, yeah, I scaled today, but I also operated a jumbo and I can operate a scoop tram today. How is that being done? So due diligence on assigning authority, you've got to be able to ask that question and say, how was that done? How did they successfully sign off on everything in one day? Sir?
You would put a range of training dates there. For instance, training started at whatever, the 10th, and the completion, the sign-off date is what I consider that date to be, your sign-off date. It's not that all has been accomplished that date. I assume you realize that, right? The sign-off date is not the date of anniversary of the training.
But it's signing off that you completed those tasks.
It's completed, right? That's the end date.
So if I'm scaling today, that's all I'm doing is scaling today. I'm not operating a jumbo as well. So if you can provide a transcript of training, say on this day we did this task, on this day we did this task, on this way we did this task, and then we signed off on this day. That would be successful, but I have not seen that yet in my travels. So be very, very careful when signing off those books. And that sends up big red lights in an inspector's role as to say, how did you complete that? And then you talk to the trainee, they don't know how they did it either. They just told me to sign this book. That really sets up red flags in our circle. When you bring them into the room, why not do your task, going underground, this is what we're doing today, this is the skill sets we are going to learn today. Are you confident with everything that's been covered here? Now can we sign off today? So during an inspection, the audit form has been shared with you already. I know it's been given out previous to this also. That's a great tool set for us, for both sides. I'll be asking the questions. You have to prove the authority that everything has been completed. It's too funny when I get to the very first question, are you the signing authority? Yes, I am. Show me. And they can't show you. So how do you know you are the signing authority? Where's the documentation that proves you are the signing authority? Where is it filed? There's all too often times when they get into the filing cabinet and they can't find anything. So how, as an employer, how as a signing authority, can you honestly answer that question? There's even been an instance where, unfortunately, it was a passing of the signing authority from this world, but the employer never realized they were the signing authority. They were doing training, they were doing all kinds of wonderful things, but it's not until I came in and did the audit where they said, oops, we don't have a signing authority. That was Joe's job. He's no longer with us. So be very cognizant of the way you run your business. The signing authority is the end keeper of all records. And it was identified earlier that you could end up in court defending this whole program, right from the trainee to the trainer to yourself. And the employer would be looking at you to make sure that those records, that documentation has been maintained throughout the whole program. And as you can appreciate, if we're into an investigation mode, heaven forbid we have something go wrong, one of the orders that will be issued to the employer was, provide me all training records. And that has to be a complete package at that point in time. You've got to be able to prove with documentation that it has been completed. Do not take the person's word for it. We don't take the person's word for it. And that comes to another point that I come in where you'll hire a new worker and the worker says, yep, I have Common Core training. And I have employers out there that take that for face value. Oh, he has Common Core. Show me. And you find out afterwards they do not. They've never been registered. They've never been written off. Unfortunately, that does happen out there. So be very, very careful as a signing authority when you're taking on new employees. Without that transcript, you have nothing to be able to bank on. And then, again, you want to be able to test those skill sets to make sure that they meet your standard at your workplaces. Other than that, it's a lot of questions. It's a lot of answers that must be educated back and forth between the inspector and the employer at that point in time. If you're stumbling, it's a sign that your program is not solid. And you want to be able to shore that up and make sure that you do have those answers, those documents at your fingertips, and that the workers are competent in what they're doing. Because those are your safeguards in the end, as far as due diligence clause goes. I'll take any questions, or we'll just pass it off to our next panelist. Ma'am.
Just a quick question from the audience regarding documents. Do they have to be paper or can they be electronic?
The question was provided from the web. Do the documents need to be paper or electronic? On our side of the world, as long as we can access those electronic records at any point in time, we don't want the computer system to crash and then we lose everything. We would expect that those documents to be available. And we mean by available that people can access them at that some point in time. If they're locked down to one specific individual, password coded and all that good stuff, that's going to be very difficult. We cannot access those documents. Or if they're on one computer that nobody can get to, or it does crash, where's all your documents? So you'll be able to back those systems up. They need to be available. So whether electronic or paper, it's the same difference in our world. Appreciate that question. And I'll just, if there's nothing else, I'll let my friend talk to their operation.
I have one question.
Sure.
For maintenance purposes, right? So having the department remote scoop or jumbo or something like that, how much work do they actually do without having to have that module? Or say the remote scoop stuck in the scope, mechanic operated to get it out?
Great. Question from the audience was from the maintenance part of view. When we deal with operating mobile equipment from the maintenance personnel, how much of that skill sets do they actually need? Coming from the maintenance background program, I can help you out with this one without a doubt. We would not expect that mechanic to have full module on that particular scoop. We do expect that mechanic to have the skill sets to know how it functions and know how it operates. So that can be done in-house by training your own workers for that particular scoop. We don't expect, because it's a scoop A and scoop B is the exact same thing. They're not. Alphenstone, Toromount, everything else have different characteristics. We want to make sure that those specifics have been provided and on record, saying that on day X, mechanic was trained on this particular scoop on how to operate the remote control system. And sign off the same way you would within the modular training, where the trainee signs off saying, yeah, I fully understand what you provided with me today, and the trainer is also on record saying that they provided that training. Is that fair?
Morning.
Mark.
Mark Campbell, valet. I'm the signing authority for the mines portion for the company. Aaron is not able to be with us. He's got the accountability for the surface. We'll go through that in a little bit. A little bit of a presentation. I'm going to go through a bit of the processes we have at Valet around how we manage our MAESD requirements. I'm getting better at it. I'm getting better at it. So we're going to cover an overview of the programs that are applicable to our company, the processes we use to manage those programs, and some tools and initiatives that my partner and I have initiated and used to be able to track. So Valet's Sudbury operations, as many of you know, is a very large operation. We have over 3,500 employees between our surface and underground facilities. And because of that, we have a very large need for a large infrastructure when it comes to learning development or training. As you can see listed here are the programs that we are accountable for as a company, because this work is being performed in our workplace. I've got 6 and Aaron's got 3, so you can see Aaron's got the surface programs, and I carry all the hard rock miner service type diamond drill underground surface, generic, and production supervisors, as well as Aaron's accountability. Processes. So going back to much of the discussion that's taken place today is around, we over and above the signing authority audit form, we have processes in place to be able to track. So needless to say, I carry 6 programs. Those 6 programs have different instruction. Those 6 programs have different requirements when it comes to learning and development. So what we've done outside of the guideline document, the signing authority guideline document, is created a matrix, an electronic document, where I track all my programs and any issues or anything that needs to be touched up, or even where my instructors are doing the audits and where my supervisors are auditing instructors. So we carry this matrix to actually track different programs and how we do the signing authority requirements against auditing. We also use the previous signing authority audit, which Lisa talked to. Needless to say, that was my last year's document, so I'm starting fresh this year. I've identified stuff in my last year's document that I need to move forward with, whether that's material development, could be a number of different things. Training material audits. So our instructors, we have a process for our instructors to audit the material they're using, as well as my supervisors, who I have 5 of. They'll go out there in the workplace and audit the material to see if it still fits the need, through technology, through different learning types. You know, adults now learn different than adults did 10, 15, 20 years ago. So we've got to make sure we're keeping up with the times. A good example of that is a joint venture we have with Glencore, KGHM, and NORCAT with the simulator. We're more visual. We're getting out and using different tools. So all these auditing processes identify challenges or actions, right? So these actions could be personal development of an instructor. We've identified through an audit from one of the supervisors or myself that an instructor is challenged in a certain way around instruction. So it's up to us to make sure that we identify and act on it to make sure that individual is successful and the training instruction is successful. Material development, same thing. We audit that in the field to make sure that it's adequate in filling the need, as well as additional audits. There's we have the trainee audits as well, where they give us feedback around how was the instruction, how was the material, and we have those audits to track that piece as well. We have a work management process. Needless to say, it's fairly complex with 6 mines to manage and multiple surface plants, 21 instructors just for the mines. We gather everybody together on a yearly basis to go through L&D workshops. That could be initiatives that come from the MAESD around program changes. We keep them well informed around that. Legislated or 54 changes. We make sure that they understand this has just come out July 1st, and we're altering this training material to reflect these changes, as well as just keeping them informed around the legislative changes. Quarterly meetings. We have quarterly meetings where we gather all the groups of surface and underground, supervisors, both Aaron and I, and the manager of the department, where we'll sit down as a group and just talk about initiatives moving forward as a business for one year to the next. And formal program rollouts, so some changes around working at heights. That would be an example of a formal program rollout where we get everybody involved and keep them up to date as far as instructors and supervisors. Monthly, we also carry what we call learning and development supervisor meetings. So each supervisor at their respective plant works with local management at the superintendent level to manage the training needs for that plant. So this is actually a weekly meeting that takes place. Well, we do our best to keep them weekly, and it's just to make sure that the plant's needs are met. And it's also to talk about, okay, guys, supervisors, we're doing a bit of an audit. We notice that there's some supervisors that are coming up to do on their first aid. It's a requirement. Make sure you guys get done. So that would be where the supervisor engages the plant at the management level. We have learning and development team risk management meetings, which is just a safety meeting where we jointly sit with all the supervisors, superintendents, and the manager to just go over how the business is doing when it comes to safety, because needless to say, training has a large impact on the safety of the business. And of course, monthly departmental communications, just changes in whatever may be taking place. On a weekly basis, we do training documentation audits where the supervisors, myself, my manager, will get into the workplace, spend time with the instructors, and just audit training. Just have conversations with the trainees and instructors, and it's the best place to learn is out in the field when you're with people. Signing authority field audits, that's exactly the same thing. I sort of captured two in one. Work management meetings at the plants, that would be in line with the comment I made around the monthly supervisor plant discussions. From a successes and challenges point of view, needless to say, there's lots of both. Valley, Inco at the time, we had more of a plant level management when it came to L&D instruction or training. Over the last 8 years, and it's an ongoing process, we've centralized from a central point of view, needless to say, if I'm accountable for 6 mines. And it's making sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to MAESD requirements and L&D instruction. Personal development of the trainers, we, as part of the signing authority guidelines and audit, we make sure that we're developing our instructors as well. So, for example, this year our instructors all have to attend a mental health first aid training course. They are dealing with people in the workplace on a daily basis. Last year it was MTCU requirements. So just a refresher on, okay guys, these are the rules. This is the signing authority guidelines. And we go through it line item by line item, and we hit that one probably every second year to make sure everybody's up to par on it. We keep a diversified portfolio. This is something, a new initiative we just started, of all our instructors, where we keep a good tracking of their TTT document saying that they are a qualified instructor in the event that we get a visit, as well as just the criteria that, okay, this instructor is highly skilled and a subject matter expert on these items, and this is where we use this individual in the workplace. We have planning and scheduling routines, which are at the plant level. I had mentioned them previously, where the supervisor is engaging the plant level management to make sure we're meeting the needs, and they're also complying with whatever initiatives are coming out at a legislative or at a training level. We have a metrics reporting program. Our department doesn't own the workplaces of the equipment, so that will roll over into one of the challenges as well. Because of that, sometimes due to production reasons, a piece of equipment is required to make sure that the plant meets production, which will stall training. So we have a metrics reporting program where we identify where we need to work a little bit more with plant management to see if we can get workplaces that are available or equipment that's available. And sometimes that's just out of our control if equipment's going down. Trainer signing authority relationships, we've done a very good job of it through those quarterly meetings and through sitting down with them and getting them involved in material development around engaging our instructors and helping them own the process rather than just saying, okay, tomorrow you're going to go out and train this person on this piece of equipment. We're engaging our people, the people that are doing the work, to make sure that they have a full understanding of the process. And it's just a simple reminder that they're also material developers as well. They are the subject matter experts. They are the people we go to when it comes to creating material. So alignment amongst trainers and areas, once again, that refers back to some of the meetings we hold just to make sure that we as a group are aligned under one central focus. We have an instructor selection process. We have a CBA governing jobs. Our instructors are unit employees. We also have an instructor selection process that we ensure that prior to an instructor going into the workplace, they, or being an instructor, because it's quite a lengthy training program, that they have the basic skills needed. So it's like an assessment. We put these instructors through an assessment where we evaluate the facilitation skills. Can they communicate well? And it's just those basic tools. We use that as an entry for an instructor to get into a role. There are many more successes, but those are the highlights. Challenges, So like everybody else in the mining business today, resources, I'm sure it's a challenge. So one of our issues is resources around just people. We're meeting the plant's needs, but probably not as fast as they require, just because the resources are limited. Work management conflicts, that's going back to workplaces or equipment not being available for us for whatever reason. Logistical challenges, 6 mines all over the map, 1 superintendent out of Coppercliff, and then supervisors all out there managing their business. So you can imagine there are logistical challenges as well. Standardized training, we're getting much better at it as a company. We've had a lot of effort and a lot of time put into a training syllabus that we're developing right now. It's well on its way, but it's as you know, functional training is 80% field instruction and 20% class. It's getting better at making sure that we're identifying what field components are required and not just the classroom materials needed. It keeps people on the same page when it comes to a Coleman instructor as compared to a Coppercliff mine instructor, making sure they're doing the same thing in the field. Post-training auditing, one of our challenges. It's not something we're very good at right now. We do it at a very minute level. We train the competence. We put people into the workplace. We sign off the governments. We make sure that they can do the work. It's getting out there afterwards to make sure that they're reaching proficiency. That is one of our challenges. Progressive vision with labor relations. Needless to say, we're trying to institute and evolve with technology to help with training instruction. We've also got issues around, you have subject matter experts that are trainers. You got a limited resource of them, and sometimes you need to move them around a little bit to meet the needs, and sometimes that creates some labor relations issues. Moving on to tools and initiatives. This is just a little example of our instructor portfolios. It's a cover page and a lot of documentation around all of our individuals. It creates pride in the work that they do, as well as the simple fact that, you know, this is your portfolio. This is what you do. You are qualified through the MAESD on these pieces of equipment, and you're proficient. You're a subject matter expert. Material audits. Here's a couple of examples of audits that we do. So the material audits, that would be the supervisors or myself getting out into the workplace, getting into the classrooms as well. It's not just about being in the field. And I'm just making sure the material is where it needs to be when it comes to development. Is it outdated? Is it appealing? Are we putting people to sleep at the back of the classroom? That type of thing. Instructor audits, that's the field component. We're watching instructors in the field, making sure that they're meeting the requirement of the signing authority audit guidelines. Those are just a few of the tools that we use. Initiatives. Train the trainer. We previously did this in-house. We use WSM to facilitate this for us. They do a very, very fine job with it, and we'll continue doing so. L&D overview. This is an initiative to provide new-to-role trainers around refresher training and incumbent trainers to the internal processes within the L&D group. And it's for making sure that everybody fully understands what the MAESD requirements are, even at the supervisor level. Continuous improvement initiatives. These are some of the sessions I was talking about earlier when it comes to developing our instructors, presentation techniques, mental health first aid, action regs workshops. These are ongoing on a yearly basis. And that's pretty well all I've got. Any questions?
Okay. In the case of, it wouldn't apply to the diamond drilling, I guess, because you always have to help her, so the training is good for it. But because of a one-man job, we'll say.
Yep.
Due diligence, all in place, the trainer, the classroom, everything else. Now it becomes the level of proficiency, right? That's
It is a very difficult.
What is your opinion on what is the right timing? What is the right level to say that he's proficient?
So we use a number of tools. First of all, we have a prescribed timeline for an individual and this is just a prescribed timeline, which is a guidance around how long it would take an individual to develop. That helps us for our scheduling and planning purposes. From that, we move on to the instructor-trainee relationship. The instructor and the trainee is, first of all, the instructor is going to not let the individual go if he's not at the competent level. We have also, for example, for long-haul drills, we've resourced out, or we've sent people out to different companies to get enhancement training. That's more done at the plant level than it is the training level. From my perspective and my department's perspective, the individual does not leave training's hands until the individual is competent and can operate on his own. Does that kind of answer your question? Depends on the individual. Depends on the individual in the training session.
The ministry's definition of competency is an individual being able to perform that task repeatedly without supervision. Yep. So that's almost an audit that you would have to do of that individual to determine when he's reached that competency level. So you would have somebody, a trainer that is competent, obviously, would do an evaluation on that individual. If he found anything wrong in what he was doing in his performance and execution or anything else that was less than perfect, he's not competent. Right. So that individual is not deemed competent to be working without supervision. We've
also had situations where the individual just can't get there and does not receive the accreditation, is removed and goes on to something different.
You want to avoid putting that person at risk at any time and yourself.
Very proficient in the safety aspect of the job. The proficiency as far as never losing a rod or making a mistake on setup. I mean, in the industry, we know that.
That's going to happen.
That's going to happen. Very difficult, but definitely the safety aspect of the job is the big one.
Yeah.
No more questions. I'll pass it on to my partner to the right.
My name is Marcel Lafontaine. I'm signing authority for cementation. Now, I'll give you an overview of what I do on a daily basis and so on. We do get some training. Next slide.
Oh, did I?
Are we still connected?
Yeah. Yep. So next slide. Thank you. On a daily basis, I do get reports in from different sites all across Canada, and we do use the Ontario Common Core for all the sites. So we get programs such as the 10, the 121, 141, 225, and the soft rock we recently got from Godrich area. So we overlook that. With those forms, I verify that the trainers, the TTTs, are competent and certified to train exactly what they're instructing on. So that's part of the check. Next slide. Now, in the past at cementation signing authority, what happened then was he would assign a trainer and a safety personnel to go to site on a yearly basis and do the audits on different trainers. These guys would go to the sites, do the paperwork, and submit it to the signing authority. I assumed the job of signing authority in 2012. Since then, I do it differently. I go from site to site and randomly select trainers at each site, and that's throughout Canada. So like I was saying before, we use the Ontario Common Core for all our projects. On a yearly basis, our skills trainers we get together and we look at our lesson plans, because things do change along the way. And when we do change things, they're submitted to each site for them to use accordingly. Ensure that lesson plans are up to date and referenced, obviously, with the regulations that they're in. Different provinces have different regulations. Challenges. I'm moving? You're moving. Okay. Challenges are scheduling and availabilities of the trainers for obvious reasons. They're scattered about Canada. Just recently came from BC, and you just don't get there on the spot. So there's 2 days of travel, etc. So obviously they know you're coming, and so it's schedule thing is and availability is an issue. Getting to know the trainers as well, because we're scattered, but we do get to know them. There's a few individuals that are always doing the training, so we get to know these fellows really good, and we call and so on. Try to standardize training, putting the same message across, particularly when it comes to supervisory training, and all the others as well, but supervisory in particular, always the same message is going across to everyone. So we maintain 2 trainers for this job, and they have the same message, same things going across to each trainee. So it's a follow through, and it's the way we do it. Another challenge is follow up. Refresher training. I wish it was more, but it's a challenge. Next slide. So in summary, we have to ensure that trainees are competent for the modules that he or she is being accredited for. Always tough to ensure that the TTTs are highly skilled, and that's definitely what our criteria are. And they are expert at what they're doing. So if they're a jumbo fella, they do the training for the jumbo, etc. Audit records are kept on file electronically in our case. They can be made available. We have a training tracker, which is a data input type of system where the information is scanned and dropped into the individual's file, so it's easily accessible. Trainers come in at our sites, contractors from different people, different organizations do the training. So my job is to ensure that they are competent in what they're doing and know our processes before they go out and do the training. Do you have more? Oh, yeah. I have. This is a training audit form that I use when I go to site. I'll certainly have to look at the checklist that we've been provided and see if it works out to what I have, embellish it or add more. But it's certainly used. I've been using this for the last couple of years. And next slide is one form I've used just recently when I went to British Columbia. Did an audit on one individual and a trainer. Next slide. Slide is the trainee gets to evaluate the trainer as well. So we provide this form. It's an interactive thing, but you can certainly sign and fill it out accordingly. And this is dropped into the trainer's file. Okay.
Is it trainer's file?
The trainer's file. So let's say if the trainee does evaluate the trainer himself.
Oh.
And that is, evidence of, again, that we use as backup. Yes?
What kind of feedback do you get from the training evaluation form? Do you ever get any negative, or is it always just check? Really
it's always fine, for the most part.
That's what I figured.
Almost fine, yes. And,
is there a way that a trainee can enter it into you without the trainer knowing about it? If there's a fault in the trainer, somewhere that he can...
Good suggestion. That we can always add that, part of the discussion process.
Evaluation forms and they all very good. Like, I must have done something wrong. Come on.
Maybe we do have put on WMIS, or when there's a big group and they're left to their own demise, whether they do or not. And usually it's not given to the trainer himself; it's submitted to me. So then that's about the only time it is a positive or negative. But most of the cases it's positive. So components of the audit. I audit trainers when we do the audits by observation, so I'm there in person and see how he demonstrates his, how he goes about training. Verify that he's using current lesson plans, because they do change. Last slide? No? Oh, well. I'll wing it. I have it here. I guess I didn't drop that last slide. Sure that they provide the most current company standards and policies, and they may change, so the trainer will have that. Sure that the trainer has good teaching skills, you know, the 4 criteria that are in our guidelines. You do the hands-on approach, so when the trainer must be there to do the training, and it's followed through the demonstration and so on. And ultimately, we want to ensure that the trainer's skills and employees' performance in the program's quality remains at a high standard. So,
Marcel,
yes,
you guys are probably a little bit different than most of your contractors moving into somebody's site.
Yes.
And you were saying with the trainers having the right knowledge of the site regulation rules.
Yes.
It must be pretty tough for contractors.
It's site specific.
And every company, even in Porcupine, we have 6 different companies, all different regulations and rules how we do things. Well, how do you guys manage walking into a company like that, into different firms? It's
certainly at the kickoff, at the onset of the contract itself, where it's all put out, laid out. Safety personnel do talk, and you know, they provide the SOPs, et cetera, related to that particular project. So then it's sort of brought down to my level, and then and that's what we use, because that's really, you know, we're going somewhere else, right?
Before you ever come on site.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's really stems from even that far back to ensure that everybody is in a loop of what's going on and what are the specifications of what's going on. All right. Yes, Dan, you're going to have to move.
Good thought.
Bring this over. I don't have a hard copy of it, so I'm not staring at the screen all the time when I'm talking. I guess that's the advantage of going last. A lot of things have been said already, and there'll be a lot of similarities, because even though we may have different tools, different systems, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. So this is actually a pretty brief presentation. Like Valley, we are fairly large, and we have several training programs. That's just a list copy-pasted right out of the one key screen on programs that we have signing authority for. So presently on the mining and the milling programs have Jamie Beauchamp as our signing authority, and on the smelter program we have Kelly Wright, who's a staff trainer there, who is our signing authority for the smelter program. So basically I'm accountable, even though I'm not the signing authority now, I have that designated to Jamie, I'm still accountable for that. And as you mentioned earlier, 1 person per program. So Jamie does have several programs, and as part of continuous improvement to select the right individuals for the programs that are actually accountable for as a signing authority for. So training requirements, very similar to what you've just heard, that we have the trainers that must meet the requirements of the signing authority guidelines, and we do have an in-house training matrix for trainers, which includes beyond train-to-trainer. It's the head end of our supervisory training program, really, where they must have ACT and regs training so that they're knowledgeable in the regs applicable to the work in their workplace. Among other things, we do due diligence and a couple of others. So just a basic example. And goes without saying that they must be signed off in the module they're actually going to deliver training in. As far as the trainer audits, each trainer is audited yearly, as required by the guidelines. The audits that are performed at the site, we have them stored there at site in their file, but they send those as well, so we make sure that we have them centrally accessible, filed electronically on our SharePoint system, so we can actually go and get them. Like you had mentioned earlier, Rick, if it's a Friday night and we have to go look for these things, I'm not going over to the smelter to go look for them. I'll call them up off our SharePoint system. Training materials, keeping our systems current. We've done a lot of work on over the last few years, and the training modules are reviewed and updated and stored electronically, and they have been for quite some time, so that the trainers themselves can access it at their sites. You probably have all similar setups where you have training rooms underground in the mill and the smelter, so they're not in one central place when they're delivering their field training. So it'll be a combination of the classroom, what they need to know, and out to the field to do their hands-on. And the only training packages used by the trainers are the approved packages. We've done a lot of changing over the last 10 or 15 years where my special package is the only one I use. No, it's the approved package, so that both mines use the same forklift module or the same whatever it is you're training on. So that approval process, it involves the site and our central training group with the trainers for that module, because as mentioned earlier, they are the subject matter experts, to make sure that those modules are current and that they reference the applicable company rules and policies. And, you know, we've had changes recently with high-vis requirements, the new module added to the service type U24. So if there's changes in the regulation, our trainers need to know that to be able to talk to it. Process is actually not that different from what was explained earlier. Anybody who's a new hire or transferred to another operation, they're essentially a new hire. I'm looking both places here. They're registered in the program appropriate for their work. So if I'm working in the mill, as an operator, I will be in the mill Common Core program. We get them to sign up front letters of permission for us to actually enter the records into the electronic system, because that's another requirement. If we're entering records electronically, I can't do it without their permission. So we have that on file that they've signed off to do that, as well as the request for transcript permission form. So once that training's been scheduled, delivered by the site, there's a hard copy. We have not gone away from paper totally yet. So there's hard copy sign-offs that end up in the employee's file. We'll get them eventually sent to us centrally for filing in our training system. But as those are done at site, there are training people that enter them electronically into our own database, where we are using the SAP Training Events Management program. So I don't know if anyone else is using SAP for training. It works, but it's a lot of work. It's not a simple system. So that training that's been delivered, we pull those through a central report, and the modules that require registering, we identify which ones those are, get them in the electronic system with the ministry, the One Key program. For those that are using the electronic system, the good part about doing that, once you've entered it, you print out a proof of entry. You can actually print out, I'll call it a screenshot of what you've just entered. So we stable that together with, you know, the registration and so on, so we can actually file that in our central spot, so we know, yeah, we did actually enter this into the electronic system. There's no other way of finding that out, because once you've entered it in, because of the privacy requirement, we can't get in to see what we entered anymore. So when required, we request the employees get a transcript from the ministry to verify these records are in the system, and we went through a major undertaking probably every few years to almost get every employee to get a new set of transcripts. So that answer your question about having a transcript in their pocket, that's not realistic. It's not even practical that an employee is going to have that. It'll be a shred of paper you can't read anymore. So it has to be somewhere central where you can get to it. Big challenge, on success and challenge sides, we have so many similarities with Valley, because we do collaborate a lot on the efforts we're trying to take with our training systems. The privacy requirement is one of our biggest hurdles, where if a person comes to us and shows us a transcript, okay, we know it's in your system, in the ministry system. But if we don't have that, and we've done in-house training, and somebody's been with us for 15, 20 more years, and they've been through different programs, different modules, we're relying on our in-house records to know that whatever we've got is in the system. So we have to continually get transcripts requested in order to see that that information is really with the ministry. it would be fantastic if down the road there's some kind of security system where you know it's the signing authority logging in with permission of the employee, so we can just go zap and pull it out and know that, yes, I'm not going to re-enter 10 modules that are already in the system, and that, oops, we had an admin error and I forgot to put in U00 because that was just added a few years back to the service types. So those are glitches we picked up on, and it's caused a lot of rework on from the admin side to try and make sure that you haven't missed anything that should be in the system. So that's, well, I guess, one of my pet peeves. I don't know if the other companies using electronic system have the same issue, but other than that, it's a fairly easy system to use. So there's lots of other challenges, but they're internal challenges with our own record-keeping system. And I'm not sure if anyone else, I didn't see any nodding of the head that you're using SAP, so whatever system you're using, hopefully it's working for you.
And when you're doing your inputting, wouldn't it be, I don't know if you do it that way, just use a release form and then send it out as soon as the training has been done, get your transcript, an updated transcript for that individual? Wouldn't that be the right way to go?
That's the right way to go, and I guess the question I would have for Lisa is, not to put you on the spot, but when we have these permission slips that are signed, they've dated the form. Do I have to get a new one every time, or can we keep one on file because they've given us permission, and then we can do the request?
The form that we have for freedom of information is valid until the trainee revokes it from us. So the question was, is how long is the freedom of information request form valid with our ministry? So if it comes in today and there's no date frame on it, then we will use that if you resend it in a month, even though it was dated the previous month, until that trainee revokes it from us, or there's an actual date range on that form.
Okay, that's good to know, because we thought we had to get a re-signed one each time we did the request.
You should be making sure, though, that you are using the current Freedom of Information release form that we have with the ministry, so that it specifically says what what your employee is requesting on there, and that we're verifying that they are releasing that specifically, that it does say release of their modular training transcript, and it's not just give them whatever you want.
Definitely.
Yes, we'll put it on the site under resources. We're going to fill up that workplace safety north site.
Thank you.
So we did have a question from Joel Joliet. What about the one-key printed document from the data entry online? Would that be proof enough that the module has been registered?
No. So the fact when the one key is entered in, that's the actual copy of the training report that is being printed that the signing authority signs. You do need, for Ministry of Labor inspectors, a copy of the actual training transcript, which is the proof of accreditation, which is stipulated in the legislation.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Good question. I would have thought that would have been proof as well, but it's not the actual transcript.
No.
We have our third party, our contractors are all registered with Cognibox. I believe you said you Cognibox as well. Somebody here uses it. And the company, say, Cementation is going to work for us for a contract. They submit all the documentation to Cognibox, proof of registration for Common Core programs. So when we open up that Cognibox form on our site, we look at Joe Blow. He's got all the Common Core, he's got women's, everything we need. Is that proof enough for the Ministry of Labor if they do an audit on our contractors on our site? That we can pull this form and say, look, it's all registered within Cognibox. Well, we don't have any hard copies of that at all.
The question coming from the audience is whether or not this form being produced by the contractors is proof enough. It's a third party.
Third party for us to look after our documents for the contract.
Yep. So at the end of the day, that would give us an indication, yes, training has taken place. But if we had a very specific question, i.e., did Rick Schulis receive training? I want that transcript on that individual at the end of the day. So that is fine and dandy at the point in time I come on site as an inspector. I would be looking for this information. I'll be going to the worker first. Have you been trained? Yes. Where is it on file? It's with my employer. I would go to the employer, then provide me this proof.
Which would be
but as an employer yourself, you have to satisfy that need that you received the documentation that says the individuals coming on your site have the qualifications to be working there. So it's an all due diligence clause. If you're satisfied with what you've got, then fine and dandy. But it won't be something that I'll be resourcing during my investigation or inspection. I'll be going right back to the primary document.
I'd like to expand a little bit on that. When you're talking about a contractor and such, I wanted to mention about temporary employment agencies. So if a contractor or a mining company is hiring workers from a temporary employment agency, you as the company bringing that person in is now responsible for that individual's accreditation and training, not the temporary employment agency, because that temporary employment agency is not engaged in mining. They're providing a worker to you, so they cannot train and sign off on anybody. That worker that goes and works for you, although they are being paid by the temporary employment agency, they are, in essence, your employee because you are directing and supervising the work. So if that individual requires training, you are to train them, and you sign off as the signing authority for that worker, and send in the modular training report, and you are responsible for keeping those training records on file, even though you're not paying the actual paycheck.
But that supplier will also, if they already have their full common core or transcripts, they will send that to Cognitive Box as well.
Yes, so they will send that accreditation, but now that they're working for you, you're responsible for their competency level. So you'll want to do your due diligence and possibly do a demonstration of skill to make sure that they're functioning at that level to do the work.
That's great. Thank you for that, for expanding on that a little more. I want that question.
Good. Yes.
Questions for both LA and Glencore. We have to take training. It's not specific to one of the modules, but we do have to take the orientation training through NORCAT in order to work on your site. Do you audit their program? Or is it expected that we will audit the program?
We do audit the program, but from a due diligence standpoint, I think it would also be diligent for you to do as well.
So that became an issue where I asked for more information than, the information that they put out on their website, and they were not willing to provide it. So I wasn't sure if you were dictating, here's the criteria, you must teach to this, and therefore really it's you guys that we should be asking for the information from for an audit, not NORCAT.
Can I answer that?
Well,
So if you're talking about the requirement under the legislation of a module that your workers need, then you as a company signing authority must do the audit at a third-party trainer if you're utilizing a third-party trainer. So it doesn't matter if it's an internal trainer or an external third-party trainer. You as the signing authority are responsible for the training, therefore you must conduct the audit of that trainer to ensure that your workers are getting trained properly and that the trainers have proper credentials. If it's a requirement of just Vale and Glencore but doesn't fall within the Ministry of Labor's legislation, then that's up to you to discuss auditing and requirements that a third-party trainer is providing to the level of the standard that the other mining companies require. Glencore and Vale do not dictate what goes into the program for the U modules that NORCAT train to. That's the ministry dictating what's in that program. And so you, as the signing authority who's sending your workers there to get trained, are to audit the U module training.
So just to add to that, as Mark had said, yeah, we have audited NORCAT. We don't particularly use their Common Core program. There's some other modules that we actually audit, and we recognize the Zero Energy State ZES module as equivalent to our lock and tag. If somebody came in with that proof, we would know they have that. But the actual U0, 1, 2, 12, those, since we aren't using them, we're not really auditing them. But we have audited our other external trainers like WSN on the supervisory programs. We've had supervisors go in there and provide us with audits of the training given, and we use that for feedback to work with WSN on how do we improve the program.
Third-party trainers are aware that the audit requirement is there for signing authorities, and they should be open to you going to visit to do an audit. I know that many other service-type companies have done it in the past with NORCAT, and it has not been a problem. Just let them know why you're there.
Any other questions?
Are there any more questions from the webinar people, online people?
In-house, yeah, sure, no problem.
For the audit, do we have to audit all trainers every year, or can we select some? Like if you had 20 trainers, you audit 5 of them that year. The next year it'll be a different size.
Yeah, it depends. And like I said, you would only audit when you're actually using the trainers. So if you trained your employee this year, but your staff hasn't changed over, programs haven't changed, they haven't required any new modules or anything like that, so you haven't done any training of employees for 2 years, you wouldn't be doing an audit because you're not utilizing those services and you're not utilizing that training, so it's not your responsibility what they're doing. Only you want to ensure that your workers are being trained to the level that they're supposed to be and that you're ultimately responsible for.
So it's fair to say if you have 20 active trainers, you're going to do 20 trainer audits.
Yes.
You're not going to just pick 5 because they're all active trainers delivering training. Okay, I can repeat that.
Yes. So the comment from Dan was, well, the question was, is that if you're utilizing 10 or 20 trainers in that 12-month period or that 1-year period for your employees, are you going to audit all of them? Yes, you want to make sure that your trainers are all performing to that standard each year and every time that they're actually performing training. If you only do a couple trainers every year, you're not going to evaluate them until every 5th or 6th year, and you're not going to know if there's any deficiencies or anything that need to be corrected. With third-party trainers, if you're auditing a third-party trainer, whether it be NORCAT, Workplace Safety North, a college or whoever, private trainer, you want to make sure that you are doing that audit and that you're communicating what those deficiencies are to a senior person. You're not going to communicate to the actual trainer themselves because you want to ensure that those deficiencies are going to be corrected and enhanced and changed for the next time your employees go there. So you want to have that communication with some senior management type person who oversees the programming and the training of those workers. Go ahead.
Comment?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Coming from a firm that we have very few people.
Yeah.
Maybe, if I'm looking at the number of people that we register each year into the Common Core program, it may be 1 or 2 people.
Yes.
And you're expecting me to be able to audit NORCAT's program every single year, as their trainer every single year.
Once a year.
As part of this, because we had 2 people trained.
Yes, if you want to be sure that they were properly trained.
So this is extremely onerous on small employers. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to put small employers out of business.
No.
We want to keep our people safe.
Yes.
But if Valet and Glencore are auditing NORCAT training programs, we as small employers
Can you use us as a resource for that?
expect it, yes, but because you now have, how many contractors do you use in a year? 500? So you have 500 employers all auditing NORCAT. And that, for me, doesn't make good business sense. I understand that we are to protect our employees, but me auditing NORCAT and then him auditing NORCAT and him, you have how many people every single day going to NORCAT then to audit them? I'm not sure that makes sense.
I can understand your frustration as a business operator on that. Valet and Glencore don't utilize NORCAT for those services, for the U modules in service type Common Core 0, 1, 2, or 12. Even if they did, Glencore and Valet are not ultimately responsible for your employees and the training of your employees. So when it comes down to a liability factor, you want to protect yourself as the signing authority and the company owner that you've done everything you can to train those employees and do the work that they're performing, and you have to be able to prove that. So if you're using a third-party trainer, how can you prove that? And I understand that with small businesses, it's difficult to get out for one day in a 12-month period to do that audit if you're using that training. But it's a necessary day, and it's a legislated requirement day that needs to be done. Potentially, is that something that might want to be discussed with the Mining Tripartite Committee on how can the committee help with small companies and service-type companies and third-party trainers for audit purposes? That's a discussion that maybe Dan can bring back to the Mining Tripartite Committee as he sits on there for the industry to discuss. But as it stands right now, another company will not take on the liability responsibility for your company to say, yes, they approve that trainer, go ahead and use them. Because if something happened to that worker, your worker, and it was related to lack of training, Glencore is not going to take the responsibility for that. It's your company's responsibility. So that's why it has to be done that way, right? You have to be able to competently speak on that and with documents to prove that your workers were trained and competently to do the work that they were doing.
It's just that the Ministry of Labor is moving in that direction. Correctly, working at Heights, you're approving the programming, you're approving the trainers. And that addresses our issue as a small business to not have to again audit them to make sure that our trainers, our people are being trained properly.
Yes, which is a great suggestion. It's just not there, and that has to be brought through Mining Tripartite to see whether that's something that a ministry would take on responsibility for now an approved trainer list, kind of basically what it would be. In forestry, there is that, but in mining, there's not.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. I'm just wondering, Diane, if all the participants, if we could basically find out who's actually on the line and who, not through introductions, but through possible email contacts, because in the world of training and safety, there's really no top secrets. We've been in collaboration with Glencore, KGHM, KID, discussing how we deliver training, what do we do, what systems we use. so that the questions we have now, you're probably going to walk away from here and think about a dozen others, so we can stay in touch with each other and network on it, because there may be something they're doing. Why should I reinvent the wheel when I'm going to do exactly what they're doing? It just helps us be more standard across the board on how we do our training. So it's good to have the contact list available. I know most of us know each other, but that's not everybody in the room.
I don't think that would be a problem. We're not breaking any
Well,
confidentiality.
if you're registered, I guess it's public information now, right? You're registered?
That's right. Any other questions online?
Oh, somebody's just sharing their email.
Thank
you.
There you go.
Yeah, that person.
Yeah, that person's information.
And I guess it's a question I sort of have with the group too before we leave, if people have found it helpful or a chance to get together and talk about some of the training issues with signing authorities. If people have found to be an advantage to have a chance to get together and talk about training issues and a chance to signing authorities to get their heads together, if people have found that beneficial and would like to do a repeat, say annually or something, and pick a specific topic to get everybody together to giving input and structuring. Because I could see probably Workplace Safety North working in conjunction with whoever we need to coordinate that in happening as an annual function. So if people online could let us know that they think that's a good idea, and if I could have a show of hands, maybe just quickly in here, if they found that it's a good, helpful thing. Okay, pretty majority in the room.
Of Workplace Safety North, because we're in a different industry. This has been my only mechanism, other than trying to speak to each of these gentlemen independently, to gather that information. So I think it's absolutely necessary.
How did you find out about the session then?
I got an email from Workplace Safety North because I booked training through them, and so that's how they got my information.
Good to know. Thank you.
And we, in sort of looking at the registrations pre the session, I did just a quick boo of who was registered, and we did have representation from all of the sectors, from aggregates, surface. Now, whether everybody did hook in today, we'll find out after post-session. And we had tried to communicate it to all the different sectors within the mining industry. So we do that. So any feedback anybody's willing to send us, I gave my card to everybody here too, so feel free to, I'd appreciate any feedback. If anyone send me a quick email of what was good, improvements, suggestions for future, I'm more than welcome. Same with online. You can find my contact information by online on the website, or you can just send it Diane Scott, Diane with one N, Scott at workplacesafetynorth.ca. It'll get to me email-wise. So we appreciate any feedback you give us, and we'll try, and if people are really finding it a useful exercise, which I'm getting the feeling from the room here, we will definitely look at doing at least an annual get-together of facilitating that. And I really want to thank all of the panelists today and presenters for your expertise and time. We really appreciate that. And all of the people who joined in, either in person or virtually. And just before we leave, are there any more questions that anybody has before we tie up? Because we've still got a little bit of time if anybody has anything. Because I'll give us about 4 minutes if nothing comes in online, and then I'll sum up.
I just want to say thank everybody for attending in person and online, because it really does make mine and Rick's job much easier if everybody has the same information and the interpretation of the guidelines and the programs and the legislation is the same. So the more we discuss this and the more information that we provide to you as companies and signing authority, the safer everybody will be, and the easier it makes it for us to have conversations and provide you with the information that you need. I just wanted to also remind you all that to make sure that you're using the most current and up-to-date training standards for your programs. There have been some changes in some of the programs. Like I said, if you were the signing authority on file when a program changes, you will get a direct letter with the guidelines and the questions and answers on changes and training standards and so on and so forth. So if you're unsure, we're going to post all of the guidelines that we have on the site. And you can also contact your ministry office, and you can ask them what the most current are, and they'll send them to you as well. No questions online?
Well, I guess, anybody here? Going once, going twice? Oh. So I guess that's it. I, again, want like to thank everybody who participated in any role during the morning. And keep in touch and let us know. Okay?
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hang up the phone.